3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on into what is another week and a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. 4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I got Patty Boyle here. I also got Stuart Kovacs here with me, and we are rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Brian Mitchell, former NFL running back, now does a great job hosting middays on 106.7 The Fan in D.C. He's going to stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time today, as we will preview the Washington Commanders. And let's start off the show with some NFL, and we will start off the show with the 6 rookie quarterbacks that were selected in the first round this year. So I saw a little of Caleb Williams. Looked good, right? There was that one throw that everyone was talking about and obsessing about online where he was on the run and just delivered a dart down the field. But there's real no takeaway from Caleb Williams. We know that Caleb Williams is going to be the week 1 starter for the Chicago Bears. Jaden Daniels looked good. We know that Jaden Daniels is going to be the week 1 starter for the Washington Commanders. But when you get to the other names, like there's no great take from Michael Penix Jr. because you know that Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year contract worth $180 million, $100 million guaranteed in the offseason. And yes, they did draft Michael Penix Jr. 8th overall, but no one anticipates seeing Michael Penix Jr. week 1, right? We all know it's going to be Kirk. And then if there is rust to shake off for Kirk Cousins coming back from the Achilles injury and he's not playing well, then that becomes a different conversation. But I think most of us expect with Kirk Cousins that he's their starter for this year. And I do believe in the Falcons' plan. Atlanta wants to keep him for 2 out of the 4 seasons, but I don't know if Kirk is going to want to go through with that. It takes 2 to tango, and Kirk Cousins at the end of the year could request a trade. So that narrows down our list to 3 names: Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. Now, as a Pats fan, I could confidently say there is not any chance, it's a 0% chance that Drake May is starting week 1. Jacoby Brissett is going to start for the New England Patriots, and it just becomes a matter with the Patriots having a brutal schedule the first half of the season. It turns into a matter of when you will see Drake May get the nod from Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf, and the Patriots want to start the Drake May era. Because the Pats are banking on Baker out of UCF, and they're banking on Polk out of Washington to provide a big jolt of energy for this team this year and some actual playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. That's what they're hoping for. They tried for Brandon Ayuk, who, by the way, he still has not been traded. So that goes back to my belief that Brandon Ayuk is going to be back with the San Francisco 49ers, and he's under contract, but I think they'll find a way for bygones to be bygones, and they'll get a deal done. If they were already offering him $26 million a year, I think they could up the ante a little bit and get $28, $29 million to Brandon Ayuk. But the Pats are in that spot. Very questionable offensive line. Ramondre Stevenson being a good running back, but a big uncertainty at wide receiver. You don't want to throw Drake May, who all I was told about Drake May in the lead up to him with the draft is, oh, he's a work in progress. You know, he needs some time. You got to develop him the right way. So I would not expect, barring injury, and I know you play in a big media market where fans, their expectations are all out of sync because for 20 years they dominated the league, so they could push the Pats to maybe expedite the timeline, but I would be surprised if we see Drake May in the first 2 months of the season. I really will. I don't think we'll see him in September. I don't think we'll see him in October. So that leads us to Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. Now, it feels like the Vikings are going to start Sam Darnold week 1 against the Giants on September 8th. Let me tell you, that would be a massive waste of everybody's time. I understand that in his one drive in a preseason game, that Sam Darnold looked competent, he looked fine, and he looked like someone that if he's starting week 1, I don't think anyone is jacked up about it, but it's not as if you go into week 1 saying, oh, you know, Sam Darnold is the quarterback, so that changes my expectations for the Vikings. Because I don't have great expectations for the Vikings when they are in a division where the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, the Packers are a dark horse to be a Super Bowl contender, and then the Chicago Bears, I think, will be a playoff team this year at 9-8 or 10-7. So J.J. McCarthy, who I think could be good in the right system, got drafted to a place where you have Justin Jefferson, you have Addison. Hawkinson, when he's healthy, is a really good tight end. They got Aaron Jones this offseason. Like, there's enough where this is not the Patriots, where in Minnesota, right? Minnesota! As you hear Joe Biden say, that's the only time I can think now when I think of just when I just say the word Minnesota on the radio. But when you have the Minnesota Vikings, they have enough where you won't ruin your young quarterback. And if your young quarterback can't be competent in that offense with those weapons, well, then you drafted the wrong guy. And J.J. McCarthy showed you over the weekend why it would be a waste of everybody's time to start Sam Darnold. Like, we've seen Sam Darnold before. In the Jets, I know the Jets aren't an ideal situation for a young quarterback, but he didn't give you really any tangible moments that you could latch onto that there was enough evidence to say, okay, the Jets, who do get the majority of the blame, but it doesn't create like a question in your mind of, oh, was it more the Jets or was it Sam? Because Sam didn't do really anything all that great with the Jets. And he's been in other spots. In Carolina, he was good at running the football. You take a look where he was last year. Remember, we went through this song and dance in San Francisco. Oh, Sam may start week 1 over Brock Purdy. Like, oh, he's going to really press Brock Purdy. It was a bunch of baloney. You knew it at the time, it was a bunch of hot air. And now people have already been hyping up Sam Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings. And I just say this. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Why should I take you serious this time? Why should I believe that Sam Darnold's actually going to be something when in the NFL, not college, because college he was good, and I was a believer in Sam, but in the NFL, he's been a big zero. That may be a little harsh as we start a week of radio, but it's just the truth, and I don't lie to the audience. So you see J.J. McCarthy over the weekend, first drive throws an interception. Right? And everyone that hates Michigan and thinks J.J. McCarthy's overrated is right there on social media saying, see, this guy sucks. He's ass. He's trash. Oh, get him out. Oh, bust. But then he answers back, completing 11 out of 17 passes for 188 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns. One was 40-something yards. The other was 30-something yards. So with what I got to see, even though he wasn't the starter, to be fair, but what I got to see out of J.J. McCarthy was enough to say I've seen enough where it's a waste of everybody's time to throw Sam Darnold out there for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, where Sam will play one good game and then will eventually play himself to the sideline, and then you want to see the guy that you drafted 10th overall. So that's my biggest takeaway from these guys, is that it's time for the Minnesota Vikings, when they get on the field on September 8th, which is now less than a month away, to play J.J. McCarthy. I don't know, though, how much of a competition this actually is. I don't. And I do expect that it is going to be Sammy slinging Darnold going out there on the field and probably throwing the ball, seeing ghosts to the other team, and then McCarthy will get on the field in the end of September, early October, and it's like, oh, why didn't you just do that from the start? But I've had that stance for a while now, that I don't want to see Sam Darnold, and that you should have J.J. McCarthy, who I don't believe can be a great quarterback in the NFL, but I think in the right system can be a good quarterback. There's enough around him with the right offensive minded coach that they have where it seems very pointless to play Sam Darnold in week 1. But I'll tell you this, and I don't like to get too low. I don't like to get too high when it comes to preseason games, because it would be hypocritical of me. Because there have been many times that you've heard me say, training camp to me is monotonous. Preseason games, I can't stand them. Because I sit there like a nervous wreck through them, and I'm just saying, I don't want to see anyone get hurt. I don't want to see anyone's season be ruined and be over with before it starts. But someone that I was shocked was a top 15 pick of the draft, and he was the 12th overall pick of the draft, was Bo Nix. Now, this is nothing against Bo Nix. When he left Auburn, he was seen and viewed as an inconsistent quarterback that was never going to meet the hype. And then he goes to Eugene, and the last 2 years, he was really damn good. Heisman Trophy finalist last year. Like what Bo Nix did at Oregon, not only did he change the narrative about him in college football, but he made himself a first-round pick. And it wasn't like, oh, you were just a first-round pick at the back end of the first round. He went higher in the draft than anyone could have imagined. Heck, if you have his family sitting next to us and you inject truth serum in them, there is no way they thought he was going to be the 12th overall pick in the draft. But Sean Payton believed that he could have his next Drew Brees. That's what he believes. Now, I think that's a crazy comparison. I have not ever looked at Bo Nix and said, I think I'm watching Drew Brees. But to be fair, when Drew Brees even made a Pro Bowl with the Chargers and he had the injuries and he was made available, yeah, the Dolphins were going for him, right? The Nick Saban history. The Saints were going for him. But neither of them thought that they were getting this soon-to-be legendary Hall of Fame quarterback that Drew Brees turned out to be. But I've said this from the start with Bo Nix. Even though I would not have drafted him 12th overall, even though I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, what he showed over the weekend in a preseason game shows that he's more than ready to start week one. When he goes 15 of 21 for 125 yards and throws a touchdown, that's enough for me to say, okay, I don't need to see Zach Wilson, even though Zach Wilson played well in the game, surprisingly. I don't need to see Jarrett Stidham because those guys, Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, they are backup quarterbacks. Now, maybe Bo Nix ends up being a backup quarterback, but when you are Sean Payton and last year in year one, you started off really poorly, then turned it around, and then when you started to compete for a playoff spot, the rug came out from underneath you. There is a big conversation to have about Sean heading into this year. And if they are dreadful this year, which I believe they can be dreadful, outside of the Panthers and New England, I don't know how many teams you could make the case for and say, oh, the Broncos should be ranked in front of them. So, they could be the third worst team in the league. But Sean's got to give us something this year. He has to. And that's hope with this young quarterback. And the offensive guru, right, that he is, you should be able to put your young quarterback in a spot where you don't ruin him in year one. And what I learned from this weekend is not only will we have, and we knew that Caleb Williams is going to start week one, Jaden Daniels is going to start week one, but when we get to the other 4 first-round quarterbacks, I can confidently now say Bo Nix is going to start week one. He's going to start week one. So that will be 3 out of the 6. You put May on the back burner. You put Penix on the back burner. And then when the Vikings want to emulate what the Broncos do and say, hey, we got a young quarterback, we got enough around him, or we got a good enough offensive coach around him, let's throw him to the wolves early. And let's see what he can do. And that's the crazy part to me. And Pat, I think you'll agree with this. It's like if you look at just the offense, factor in the coach, factor in the running back, the line, the players, it should be a no-brainer, regardless of what you think about the quarterbacks and whether they're going to be great or not long-term. It should be a no-brainer that Minnesota should be starting J.J. McCarthy week one, but it doesn't feel like they will. And we know Sean Payton has the cojones to start a rookie quarterback week one, even if it's not the most ideal situation for a young quarterback to be in. And look what he was already able to do in its one preseason game, right? You're not going into the Hall of Fame after one preseason game. I'm not going to get delirious with the hype, but he's showing you, guys, I may be a little bit better than what Zach Gelb on the radio thinks I am. And there's no doubt I'm taking the baton week one, and we're going to see how far I can run with it.
I totally agree with you with Denver, with Sean Payton. There's not many head coaches I'd rather see fail than Sean Payton.
Yeah, he's turned it to be very obnoxious. But I didn't dislike him with the Saints, but the Broncos, I can't stand him.
And what is the difference in terms of their win total at the end of this year if you go with Jarrett Stidham or with Bo Nix? And I think Jarrett Stidham, who, by the way, has played the last 2 games of each of the last 2 seasons and looked like decent, but for the most part, how much of a win total difference is there from Jarrett Stidham to Bo Nix?
I would say there's no difference probably in year one with this surrounding environment in him.
Yeah.
But you say, who do you have more confidence in to win more games? I would say it's the unknown of Bo Nix.
Yeah, and again, if Sean Payton throws him out there week one and he gets beat up for the first couple games, but you see a couple flashes, right? You see a couple
It provides hope.
You see, him throw for 65% completion percentage because it's just a lot of dinks and dunks like he
Quick
did with
passes.
Russell Wilson last year, and how he, racked up so many yards at Oregon. I think Sean Payton can make the case, hey, even if we go 4-13, I've bought another year for myself as the head coach because there is some promise with the quarterback.
Like, you look at these 6 teams, because that's another thing. Like, you could be bad, but also give hope. You look at the Bears, like, you would agree, the Bears, they have to be better than what they were a year before because they're not a traditional team with the number 1 overall pick. They got it via trade. So them having 7 wins last year, if they're not at 9 wins, it feels disappointing for the Bears this year. Like, you would think Caleb Williams in year 1 gets you 2 more wins, I would say. Jaden Daniels, like, the Commanders, you could tell me, okay, they could be a dark horse team that could compete for that final wild card spot in the NFC, but I think that's like the extreme apex. Like, if they're 9-8, I would be surprised. But I think they're like a 6 to 8 win football team, let's say. You throw Jaden Daniels out there early. After that, though, it's like you look at these other teams. Okay, throw Atlanta out because they're a team that's going to win their division probably, and you got Kirk Cousins. But those 3 other teams, Denver, New England, and Minnesota, Minnesota has the most on offense. And if J.J. McCarthy is all that, which I don't know if he will be, then you could talk about potentially being a playoff team. But for those other 2 teams with Denver and New England, you're not wrong. Like, Jacoby Brissett is a solid quarterback. Like, he's a guy, if he needs to start a season for you, he could be fine. He could be competent. But he's not a guy that is a year in and year out starting quarterback. He's a journeyman quarterback in this league. Is there that much of a difference if the Patriots and their win total this year with how dreadful that team is, if they put Jacoby Brissett compared to Drake May? No, and it's the same thing probably with the Broncos too, but I'd rather see the hope of a Drake May and a hope of a Bo Nix, except, man, both of those teams do not have a lot around both those quarterbacks.
No, I'm surprised you as a Patriots fan is okay with just like, all right, yeah, it'll be Jacoby Brissett for 2 months. Like, what do you have to lose? And think about
Here's why.
Hold on, the clock on a quarterback is what, 3 years now in the NFL? You're taking away You're taking away a whole half of a season, if not more, on Drake May for a team that is at most wins 6 games this year.
That's how bad the offensive line is.
So you don't want to get him killed.
Outside of Owenu, I will admit, even though I could go back and forth in this a little bit, and that will be my internal battle this year. Because when he was drafted, I said, if they don't get Brandon Ayuk, I said it that night, store him on the bench until November. I don't want to see him. But as a football fan, it's like nothing against Jacoby Brissett, who's a professional, consummate professional, and the Patriots' schedule is going to be really tough. Eventually, there will be a time where I will be on the radio, I guarantee it this year, saying, I know what I said back at the draft, but who cares? Get Drake May on the field. Because at least it provides that hope. But for both those teams, I don't care what the Patriots or Broncos record is. I don't. It's about, at the end of the year, thinking you may have the guy. Not even that you have the guy. But look at a team like the Texans and how bad the Texans were. Now, the Texans are a destination because they have the guy in C.J. Stroud. That changed in 1 year. You want a Brandon Ayuk to take the $32 million from the Patriots down the road? You need Drake May to be a stud. The Broncos want to go get the big-name wide receiver. You need Bo Nix to be a stud. And it's just one of those teams want to start that time clock from ticking because once you put them on the field, that's when the time starts. But, yeah, I am more of a patient fan, and it's easier when you have 6 rings in your back pocket and you've had the most success ever. But I understand how bare it is in New England right now, where it's year 1, wash for Gerard Mayo. Year 2, improve slightly, and then year 3, they better be a playoff team. And if not, then it was a wasted 3 years in New England.
I do disagree with you, though, on Minnesota. Maybe we can discuss more after the break, because I think Sam Darnold deserves to start. And I am one of the people that after watching J.J. McCarthy severely underthrow on that first drive.
You guys both mono supporters?
I'm one of the guys that's going ass, trash, bust.
Yeah. I'm just saying, you probably have had mono in your life, right?
No, actually, surprisingly
that's very surprising. I would say if Pat Boyle had mono, I would have put the odds at minus 400 before getting the answer of that question. So I will listen, because I always listen. I may not agree, but I will listen. I like to hear the other side. I will listen to your Sam Darnold defense coming back in a few minutes. Also, maybe one of the more bizarre NFL situations you've ever seen. We'll get to that on the other side as well when we return. The biggest pro football contests in Vegas are back. Circa Survivor and Circa Million are now up to $16 million in guaranteed prizes. You have 2 ways to win and no rake. Circa Survivor contestants select one team each week with no point spread. If the team loses or ties, the entry is eliminated. You can only pick each team once in a season. Last the longest to win it all with $10 million guaranteed. In Circa Million, make 5 picks against the spread each week for your share of $6 million guaranteed. Quarterly and full season payouts. The entry that does the worst even wins $100,000. You must register at a Circa Sportsbook in Nevada, Las Vegas, Henderson, or Sparks Reno. We are heading out to Circa, and I love going to Circa Las Vegas, and we'll be doing our show live from Circa on August 22nd and 23rd. The Zach Gelb Show going on the road, baby, to Las Vegas. Entries are now open and closed September 7th at 2 p.m. Visit circasports.com for details and rules. Must be 21 and present in Nevada. Paid for by Circa Sports.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I had a great 30th birthday on August 9th. Thank you for everyone that did reach out. It was very nice for two of my close friends to throw me a birthday party, a.k.a. Their wedding, where I did officiate the wedding, and I'll get into some more details about that. We'll share some stories from the weekend coming up later. But Patty Boyle, I got to ask you this. You were a defender and still are a defender of Sam Darnold. You think the Minnesota Vikings, and I know you're anti-J.J. McCarthy because this is the Pat Boyle playbook. Whenever it's a big brand, whenever there's someone that's controversial, Pat's like, nope, screw him, guy's going to suck, right?
That's not true.
You tend to do that.
That's not true. I think Penix is the best quarterback in this class. I think he has a chance to usurp Kirk Cousins at some point.
Don't get me wrong. Michael Penix Jr., what he did the last 2 years was sensational. And I'm a huge fan of Michael Penix Jr. and his old coach in Kalen DeBoer. There's nothing controversial, though, right, about Michael Penix Jr. When you look at a J.J. McCarthy, it's just, I know what you do. It's like whenever there's a pick segment and the Eagles are in the the team that could be picked at, I know Pat Boyle's picking against the Eagles. I just know you. I know how you operate. There's just big brands with passionate fan bases that you go against. And you've done that with J.J. McCarthy because of Michigan. And you like to get under the skin of the Michigan fan, which is fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But tell me your defense of Sam Darnold, who, by the way, is known for two things in the NFL. Seeing ghost against Patriots and getting mono. Why should the Vikings start Sam Darnold week 1 when I'm not even telling you J.J. McCarthy is going to be a Hall of Famer? I'm not even telling you he's going to be a great quarterback. I will say I do think the limit of J.J. McCarthy is just being good in the NFL. But I don't think he's a top 5 ever quarterback in the NFL. Like maybe borderline in the right spot, top 10. But he went to a good situation where you got KOC, Kevin O'Connell, you got Addison, you got Jefferson, you got Jones, you got Hawkinson. Like you got enough there where I would go with the guy that you made the 10th overall pick compared to Sam Darnold, who was on the Jets, the Panthers, and the 49ers, and now is on the Minnesota Vikings. And he's already a bust in this league. So why should the Vikings waste their time with Sammy Darnold?
Well, I think he is in. I think he is set for a Geno Smith 2022 rejuvenation year of his career. Think about it. A lot of people forget, right? Many lost seasons of the last couple of years here for the Carolina Panthers. The end of that 2022 season, Sammy D played pretty well. And then he gets that into 2023, goes to the Niners. He's Brock Purdy's backup a whole year. And look, because there's other times where I can totally disagree with this, right? When Mitch Trubisky went to Buffalo to be Josh Allen's backup, I said, I don't care if he was growing on his ass. Mitch Trubisky will never be a good quarterback again. I think differently with Sam Darnold because he had a whole year to learn the Kyle Shanahan system.
That was one way to put it, by the way.
Thank you. It's a very complex.
Happy Monday to all. Jeez.
It's a very complex system. So a year just soaking in through osmosis, everything with Shanahan's system, that offense there. And then he gets in for mop-up duty on Christmas night. And again, game's already in hand, but he played really well against Baltimore. And then the one game he started against the Rams, Week 18, also looked pretty good. So I'm like, hey, maybe there's a chance, and that's what I think, I'm confident, that Sam Darnold has changed. And look,
but let me ask you this. Is he going to change to a point where you think he takes the baton, runs with it, and then they never hand it back to J.J. McCarthy?
I don't know about never, but I think in this year...
You think Darnold starting the entire... There's a chance he starts the entire season?
I don't think J.J. McCarthy sees the field this year.
Wow.
I think Sam Darnold performs so well. The Vikings are the surprise team in the NFC this year. I think the Bears end up being busts, and I think Caleb Williams ends up being a bust.
Really?
And they only win 6 or 7 games.
Okay, so I'll start reserving a bust for Caleb Williams in Canton, Ohio. That's what I'll start doing.
Okay. And then I'm not hicky. Not everything I say is you should bet against, bet
Big
the opposite.
Bust Boyle.
But with the Vikings, I see them winning 8 or 9 games this year and going down to the wire competing for a playoff spot.
With Sam Darnold as the quarterback.
With Sam Darnold as the quarterback. I think Sammy D's in for a big year. Kevin O'Connell, I think, has done a great job with quarterbacks in years past. And think about it. The Vikings season seemed like it was over in Week 8 last year, and then a combination of Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, and even the one game they throw Jaron Hall in there. If they win that game against Green Bay, what was that, Week 16? They're probably in the playoffs.
So I think you may be the lone person in the media that, I'm fully understanding that Sam Darnold's going to be the week 1 starter. I disagree with it. But if you think he's holding that baton for the entirety of the season, I can't get to that line of thinking, especially, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. Week 1, even though the Giants defenses, I got some players. Well, you got Brian Burns, you got Kayvon Thibodeau, you got Sexy Dexy, and Dexter Lawrence, who is one of my favorite defensive players in the league. You got Bobby Okereke. That's a spot where Sam Darnold, right, plays well. And then everyone's sitting there, and they're taking the bait. Oh, Sam Darnold rejuvenated. Oh, it was the Jets who messed him up, and he didn't really get another opportunity.
Just don't make sure I'm not on the board working on this show the first Monday after week 1 because
that's what you do. You celebrate before there's something to celebrate about. You celebrate prematurely, which is fine. But then after that, here's the Vikings schedule. San Francisco, the Texans, at Green Bay, the Jets, the Lions, the Rams. That's just the next stretch of games. If Sam Darnold is still the quarterback by week 9 on November 3rd against Indianapolis, I'd be stunned. Absolutely stunned if he's still the quarterback. Forget about the rest of the season, like you just said. November 3rd, I would be stunned.
Okay. And again, he's got a pretty damn good team around him. This Vikings defense, big step forward under Brian Flores last year.
They're not dreadful. They're not the Pats or the Broncos.
Yeah, so I don't think the Vikings are going to have to win games, 31-28, 28-24. I think their defense will keep them in games, and I think Darnold will play the role of game manager. And I'm burying the lead. He's got the number 1 receiver in football on his side that he's throwing to in Justin Jefferson.
Number 2. Tyreek's got to be 1 now. And there's not many bigger fans of Justin Jefferson than me.
Okay.
When you come up to the Super Bowl and dap up Zach Gelb, I'm a huge fan of Justin Jefferson, right? But Tyreek has to get that title. NFL Top 100, the number 1 player in the league.
Yeah, the list that we crushed last week.
I did no such thing.
Jordan Addison's a great too, and then when he comes back, T.J. Hawkinson, who's been a top 5 tight end in football the last 2 years, he's got weapons, man.
They got weapons. That's why they should play McCarthy week 1.
No.
It's a waste to put Sam Darnold out there because he's not your franchise quarterback. You drafted J.J. McCarthy to be your franchise quarterback. There's enough to see if McCarthy in year 1, with how quickly the time clock now goes for quarterbacks, can sink or swim this year. Hey, Marco, just do me a quick favor here. I just want to ask you, a few things. Okay. So we know Caleb Williams starting week 1 for the Bears. Mm-hmm. We know Jaden Daniels is starting week 1 for the Commanders. Mm-hmm. Michael Penix, because Kirk Cousins is there, is not going to start week 1. And if Kirk gets off to a little bit of a rusty start, be some calls for him. But I could feel confident as long as Kirk Cousins is healthy this year, he's going to be their quarterback for this season.
Okay.
When you get to these other 3 guys, I'm putting the headset on Coach Belletti. You starting Bo Nix week 1 if you're the Denver Broncos?
No.
No, you're not.
No.
Okay, why?
To me, this whole thing goes back to the one simple question. Is he ready? I don't think Bo Nix is ready.
Even with what he showed over the weekend?
I don't care. I don't think Bo Nix is ready to take the mantle week 1 all the way through his rookie year, go through the struggles, go through the ups and downs, and mentally be able to get out from the other side and be a better quarterback for it going through to the future. Because to me, that's what this is about.
So you would sit, hold off on McCarthy for a second. But if that line of thinking, and you're saying, okay, you wouldn't start Bo Nix, then you're probably also saying the same thing for Drake May, who doesn't have much around him either.
100%.
Okay. And I'm in the
I don't think these guys are ready.
I think Bo Nix will play week 1. I don't think Drake May will play week 1. But now when we get to McCarthy, what do you do there? Even because it's not like New England and Denver, they got weapons in Minnesota.
They do, but this is still the idea of, is the guy ready? Or are you throwing him into deep water and saying, you know what, let's hope it works out. This is what you drafted him for, the hope that it works out. Put him in the best situation possible. And that's not week 1. Because in week 1, you've got all the different things that's going on. You have all the expectations. You have the possibility of the play. Everything. Here you go, Rook. Go get it. If you don't think that guy is absolutely 100% ready for that, then don't do it. Because what's the point? The whole point is your franchise to go forward, to have this guy, to look at him and go, you have the ball for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Why am I jeopardizing that if you are not ready? Now, if I'm confident from the second you walked in my building, you are the best quarterback in the room and you're mentally ready to go up there and physically ready to make sure that you can be in the best position possible, then so be it. I have a difficult time believing Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, who everybody's been talking about as a project, are ready for that step. And why am I setting my franchise back 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Because after 2 years where we watch the guy struggle, we go, got to get a new quarterback. Got to go get one. Everybody knocking on the door. You're never going to be in the top 10 again. Go get one next year. This guy's obviously a bust. What did I just do? I destroyed my franchise for what? Because I'm not patient? Asinine.
I'm not fully disagreeing with you on that idea. I don't personally. I don't, like, if I was with the Broncos, I think you could make a case for him to not start, but I think he will when you look at a guy like Stidham and Zach Wilson being around him. In Minnesota, you got Sam Darnold. Like, how do you view Sam Darnold?
You're right. Here's the difference. To me, and this is not about Sam Darnold or Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson. I don't care about any of these guys. They're not my past. They're not my future. They could be my present as long as the other guy is not ready. I don't care if Sam Darnold has a rejuvenation. J.J. McCarthy's my 10th overall pick. I'm expecting him to be my guy.
How much, just wondering, does your philosophy on this goes back to, right, Eli Manning comes from one of the great football families ever. And they had Kurt Warner there in his first season. And Kurt Warner was actually playing well. But they didn't start Eli Manning right away. And then they inserted, even when the Giants had a decent record, they inserted Eli Manning in there. And they showed the patience there not to play Eli right away. Does that impact at all, that thinking?
No, because that's actually, they were quick to pull the trigger on that. They were 5-3, and then they were, I think it was 5-4 when they went to Eli.
Sure.
I thought it was a little quick, but they saw that he was ready. That's what they felt. So, okay, turns out to be a good decision because by the next year, he was ready. There's a lot of guys, though, that I've watched them get ruined. Because we have this idea that, well, you played in college. Why aren't you ready for week one? Because it's a big friggin' difference. That's why. And if I'm not ready to hand you the ball and say, go get it, kid, we've seen guys that have struggled and been able to get from the other side. But mentally, that's a difficult hurdle. Peyton Manning struggled mightily his rookie year, but he had a lot of big moments, and then it helped him propel. And we know that the guys that it worked for. How about all the guys that failed? Was it all on them?
It's a great question.
I find that difficult to believe. Is it really that difficult to see talent, or is it sometimes you're put in the wrong situation because it's bad around you? And then you're asking them to overcome everything else. I back off. If it's not ready, if it's not there, I want to give him every opportunity to succeed. If he's not ready for it, I'm not pushing it.
It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We got Pat Boyle here. We got Marco Belletti. We got Stuart Kovacs as well. A full crew today. Good to have everyone here with us. We will take a time out. When we come on back, I'm sure Marco will talk about this in his update. But this Hassan Reddick situation is just bizarre. We'll get into one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in the history of the NFL when we come on back in 5 minutes. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Zach, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with Life Electronic Device and Pet Health Insurance. Getting ugly for the Jets. Hassan Reddick reportedly asking for a trade after just getting dealt to the Jets from the Eagles earlier in the offseason. Reddick wants a long-term deal. He's been a holdout 21 days. And the two sides apparently not on the same page as Reddick wants out before he was ever actually in. Meanwhile, Chiefs head coach Andy Reid giving some good news regarding Marquise Hollywood Brown after he exited their preseason game with a dislocation in his shoulder.
Hollywood, they were able to get the joint back into place without surgery, which is a positive. And then we'll just see how he recovers. He's back in Kansas City now. He stayed over in Jacksonville until they got their things situated.
Now, still unclear just how long Brown may be out. Red Sox outfielder Jarren Duran suspended 2 games by the team for his anti-gay slur directed at a fan on Sunday. For the second straight year, Georgia begins the season top AP, 25 polls. Bulldogs have won 2 of the last 3 national championships. They're 42-2 over that span, received 46 first-place votes. Ohio State comes in at 2, garnering 15 first-place votes. Oregon, the other top spot. They begin the year at 3. Texas and Alabama round out the top 5. I'm Marco Belletti.
855-212-4227. That's the number to get in touch with us. The Infinity Sports Network. Give us a call. 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INS Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. So this Hassan Reddick situation with the Jets is the most bizarre thing I think I've ever seen in terms of a player requesting a trade. So Hassan Reddick this past offseason wanted more money from the Philadelphia Eagles. Right? I think it was Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick. They had to make a decision. Who were they going to pay and then who weren't they going to pay? And once they paid Josh Sweat, you knew Hassan Reddick was going to be the guy on the out. And they eventually got a deal done with Bryce Huff, who ironically played for the Jets last year. So Hassan Reddick requests this trade. And then at the time, because I want to say it was a conditional third-round pick, I thought it was a savvy move by the New York Jets. Because even though he had a contract dispute in Philadelphia, the Jets have so many pieces on defense. And also the Jets, whether you think they're going to win now or not, they're in a win-now mode when you have Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles injury. And you don't know how much longer he's going to play in the NFL. So this goes back to the end of July. Connor Hughes did a great job in detailing the reporting of the situation when Hassan Reddick didn't show up to training camp. The Jets made Hassan Reddick a contract offer before the trade from Philadelphia. It would have been a raise from the $14.5 million he's scheduled to make this year. Reddick declined the offer. The Jets said if he wanted more, which was, I guess, $25 to $28 million annually, they needed to see him perform first. In the meantime, the Jets would just adjust his current deal, convert non-guaranteed to guaranteed, and incentives. Reddick told the Jets he was on board with this. He would show up for the offseason program, minicamp, and training camp. He performed well early season, leading to an in-season extension, similarly to what happened with John Franklin Myers in 2021. Reddick then skipped OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. The Jets are not willing to negotiate anything until he shows up. The Jets do not know when he plans on coming back. He will be fined for his absences. So that was from the end of July. And you take a look at where we are now. Today, you have Hassan Reddick requesting a trade. Now, maybe this has happened before, but I think I would have remembered it, especially with a high-profile player. Like, if this happened with some bum, no one would care. But Hassan Reddick was one of the more important pieces for the Philadelphia Eagles the year they got to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. And last year, he started the season banged up. But when they went to the change to Matt Patricia as the DC, Matt Patricia just didn't use him the right way. So I do believe Hassan Reddick is more than deserving of a new contract. Like, don't get me wrong. What this guy has done the last few years, because the first few years of his career, the Arizona Cardinals didn't use him correctly. But that last year at Arizona, he showed you what he's capable of, 12.5 sacks. Then he goes to Carolina, 11 sacks. 2022 with the Eagles, 16 sacks, and last year, 11 sacks. So I get it. Hassan Reddick is 29, 30 years old because we were at college at the same time. Like, I know him well from my time at Temple. But it's not as if I'm like, okay, this guy's about to hit his 30s, so I think he's on the decline of his career. I still think he has at least 3 or 4 more really productive years together. But even being an Hassan Reddick guy, you lose me if the story goes like this. You weren't happy with your contract in Philadelphia. You request a trade. I understand people would say, well, why didn't the Jets figure out this contract from the start? They obviously had conversations with him. I don't know what offer they made him, but they made him an offer. And if he wants $25 to $28 million, I'm not even saying he's not deserving of that. If the Jets said, we're not going to give you that, we need you to show up, and you said yes, then that's on you. Now, things change, right? You get told one thing one day, and then something else happens the next day, and it changes your opinion. Does this all go back to John Franklin Myers getting traded, and he's like, oh, there goes all their leverage. And now they actually need me because they're saying I'm their guy. Well, if you're saying I'm their guy, maybe then you go out and trade me, because there's a difference in trading for someone, or pay me. There's a difference in trading for someone, and you're not really risking a lot, and you're hoping it works out. But when you go out and then trade John Franklin Myers, it's like, oh, you're going to be maybe relying on me a little bit more than I thought. So I'm not saying Hassan is in the right, but this is what I will say. I wonder if you asked Hassan, who's from Camden, if you knew that you were going to go to the Jets and whether you were trying to maybe pull a fast one on them or not, I don't know. But if you knew that you'd get to a point where you'd ultimately request a trade from the Jets, would you wish you just would have rather stayed in Philadelphia in the same deal that you're now in New York? And right, even if people are optimistic about the Jets, I'm more optimistic about the Eagles in an easier conference than I am with the Jets in a tougher conference. So this is just a giant mess. And there's going to be many opinions on this. Some people will take the low-hanging fruit right and go, oh, same old Jets. This is why the Jets can't have anything nice. And others will say, like, Hassan, I don't really know what else you can expect the team to do. But the crazy part is that we're here. We're less than a month away from the start of the season. Hassan Reddick still hasn't showed up. And Hassan Reddick doesn't have a new contract. So nothing changed from when he got out of Philadelphia. And at this point, I don't know. Like, would the Jets even give him more money for this year at this point? I would probably say no when you're requesting a trade. And I don't think Hassan can win here. It's not as if the Jets are now going to give you what you want just because you're holding out and now you request a trade. And then who's going to trade for him without paying him? Because he's willing to do that with the Jets. So the Jets have responded about the Hassan Reddick trade request. This is their general manager, Joe Douglas. We've informed Hassan that we will not trade him. So there you go. That he is expected to be here with his teammates and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have here as we prepare for the regular season. Even being someone that knows Hassan Reddick going back to when he was a walk-on at Temple, I got to be fair. I kind of believe the Jets here. And I think the Jets are more in the right than Hassan Reddick. That's just the way that I see this. But I don't think he's going to get traded. And this could be a mess. And Hassan, I don't think that there's much here that will really end up making you look good and that you end up winning by requesting this trade.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I may be in the minority here, so I'll ask Stu and I ask Pat Boyle. I guess Ian O'Connor, who's a tremendous writer. Nothing against Ian O'Connor. But there is a book that he has coming out, and every radio show, right, is now going to put Ian O'Connor on. And I don't want to be hypocritical here, because there's books that sometime I'll read, I'll be like, okay, I want to get the author on, and you'll hear him all throughout the day, right, on Maggie and Perloff, then Bill Ryder, then Jim Rome, then the Zach Gelb Show, then JR, then Bart Winkler, then Amy Lawrence, right? And it's like, over and over and over again. And I get it. We don't have the same affiliates as every other show. There are some affiliates, and we love those affiliates, right? We love all affiliates that carry, every show on the network. So the audience, I understand that, at 6 a.m. is different than the audience at, let's say, 5 p.m. It's a lot different. But, so it's not me just saying I don't want to put Ian O'Connor on because every other show I know on this network is going to have him. And I think every interview is different. Like Maggie and Perloff could do a different interview than I do an interview. Jim Rome does a different interview and so on and so on. But last week when we got pitched Ian O'Connor and I heard he had this book coming out and it's a book about Aaron Rodgers, I'm like, who cares? I am very clear on this. I know that we talk about Aaron Rodgers a ton. But when it comes to a documentary or when it comes to a book, it better be a great mystery. And there better be many questions that I have about Aaron Rodgers. Like, what's in this book? And I've seen what's been promoted, right? his relationship or lack of it with his family. And now I guess he's trying to have a relationship with his father again. And, there's a bunch of information on why that relationship did deteriorate. And then the vaccine topic, right, where he said he was immunized. It's like, do I want to interview Ian O'Connor? The family stuff, all right, maybe a little bit interesting. But we've known now for years that Aaron Rodgers and his family don't see eye to eye. And the vaccine topic, I'm sorry, I don't think there's nothing less that I'd rather do than talk to Ian O'Connor. And then all the DMs that I will get from that conversation as someone that's not a political person and how that topic always gets politicized. And then the amount of DMs and tweets and Facebook messages from people that I won't even say anything, but judging whatever Ian O'Connor says about Aaron Rodgers, I will be held accountable for it. So quite frankly, I don't think there's anything interesting enough right now that I say, a whole book needs to be written about Aaron Rodgers. And I said the same thing, right, when the Brady documentary came out. They did that one, Man in the Arena, which I did watch, and then there was another one that came out. It was the Dynasty, where it recapped the whole Patriot dynasty. Like, can we let that moment breathe a little bit? It's not ancient history, all right? It's not something that happened 20 years ago where now we need to relive it. Like, I understand The Last Dance was so popular because it was during a time when there was nothing going on because we were in the middle of a pandemic. But the Patriot documentary would have been so much better 15 years from now when there's some people that weren't even alive to see it or really remember it, or there's others like me that love that time where you're just trying to relive it. But to do so a few years after Bill and Brady broke up, please, enough. Way too soon. Rodgers is still playing. Can you at least let the guy go through his first retirement tour before we end up having a full book now about Aaron? Like, this isn't the Manti Te'o story where it's like, we have so many questions that we have answers to, that we don't have answers to. Like, what's the pressing thing right now? And to be fair, I haven't read the book. So it seems like I'm slamming the book. But, the reason I bring this up is, you want to hear the big press so far from this book? Like, Pat Boyle, if you had to take a guess, there's an article out there today about an interview that Ian O'Connor did. What do you think the big headline would be maybe from an Aaron Rodgers book if you just had to take a guess? Like from an interview that he did, something that Ian O'Connor maybe revealed. What would you gather? What would the topic probably be?
So it's a statement that Ian O'Connor made?
Yeah, something that happened.
Well, I did see something about Rodgers' regrets that he said, the whole immunized thing.
Okay, right? But you would think it's something vaccine-related, right?
Correct.
Stu, you probably would think another headline would maybe be either vaccine or family-related, right?
Yes, has to be one of those.
Because outside of that, like, what, your relationship with Mike McCarthy? We've already had all these. Ty Dunn probably, well, I think it was Ty Dunn. I love Ty Dunn. Great writer. He's already done like a 20,000-word piece on it. All right? So here's the headline from Awful Announcing. And it tells me everything I need to know that whatever is in the book isn't something that I need to really read and isn't really that interesting and needs to be written now. Awful Announcing headline. Did Ian O'Connor fart during Dan Le Batard's show interview? That's the big headline on Awful Announcing from this interview. Now, we have all heard those things before where you are on the air and you got to pass a little gas and you let out a little toot-toot. That has happened before. We have even had a once ex-radio producer on this network who is now a talk show host down the hall in Sean Marash literally poop his pants on the air. All right? But the big headline from the Ian O'Connor book isn't, hey, what was Aaron Rodgers' whole vaccine comments? Oh, what about his lack of relationship with his family? Did Ian O'Connor fart during the Dan Le Batard show interview? Stu Gatz almost was once our boss. Maybe we call up Stu. Hey, Stu, you think Ian passed gas during this interview? So now, Pat, I will put you on a little bit of a search. I got to hear the audio. I have not heard the audio of the possible toot. We will do that later up in the news brief. We will play you the audio, and we will hear if Ian O'Connor did or did not fart in the interview. Now, I will say this. I actually once had a meeting. One of my first jobs out of college. I was working at this station actually Stu worked at. 9:20 a.m. New Jersey. It's when I first met Stu, or Stu at least knew who I was. I guess Stu worked on the weekend, so I never really saw him. But I was the program director. I was the afternoon drive host. I was the board op. I was the engineer. And I produced all the shows that were basically paying to get broadcasted on the air. So I did everything there. And I vividly remember we're in a meeting. You know, there's other stations there. Stu, what was the name of the stations where Chris Rollins was at?
PST.
PST, thank you. So Chris Rollins, long time morning host at the station. She's phenomenal. A tremendous woman. And we're in a meeting where, right, Chris Rollins is the face of PST, and then you have Zach Gelb, like the face of 920 the Jersey. And I said, guys, can we get new chairs? And they said, why do you want new chairs? I go, these chairs are so squeaky. I go, it sounds like anytime you move, and I had fiery rants there. I still have fiery rants now. It sounds like you're passing gas when that chair squeaks. And they all laughed at me. And I read in the article that Ian O'Connor, when they called him out for this, said, I just have a squeaky chair. Now, I will be honest. I may have passed gas, but never on the air. You know, commercial break, definitely. In a solo studio where I'm running everything, I'm passing gas if I need to. Just make sure the microphones are off. But those chairs were so squeaky. So squeaky. So I may, depending on when we play the audio, I may come to the defense of Ian O'Connor. But I bet you this. This Ian O'Connor potential fart is going to be more publicity for the book than anything probably in the book. All right? So, geez, nothing against Ian. Ian is phenomenal. Great writer. But I just have to speak genuinely. When we were pitched this last week, I was like, pass. Like, an Aaron Rodgers book right now, Pat, to me, at the timing of it, I have no desire to go spend my own money, even if they send it here, which I'm sure they will, and say, oh, I need to read a book about Aaron Rodgers right now.
It's not like Rodgers is so closed off that we don't know, that we need to know answers from him. He tells us everything. Every week last year on McAfee Show, he has been.
Even got McAfee in hot water. You know? It never ends. I don't need more access to Aaron Rodgers. We have enough.
Exactly. All the different political hosts he has sat down with and told us all of his conspiracy theories. You don't need to write a book to tell us what Aaron Rodgers thinks. He tells us almost on a weekly basis.
All right. Talking to someone that doesn't shut up. About someone that doesn't shut up. Here is Jerry Jones. This was going back to last week. This is what started the whole, I don't want to say confrontation because it was already confrontational. CeeDee Lamb's holding out. He wants a new contract. He's not getting a new contract. And Jerry Jones, because he can't help himself with the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, he opened his mouth. And Jerry Jones, I've always said this for the last 5 years, he just rambles and rambles and rambles and rambles. And it's entertaining because you have basically no clue what he's saying. But he always finds a way to put his foot in his mouth, and he just messes up and makes these contract disputes just crazier than what they need to be. Like, for example, any other owner had a contract dispute with a star player, and they were asked about it. All they would say is, we are handling that internally with the player, and we do not discuss contract matters publicly. Jerry Jones, if Jerry Jones ever owned us here, I would never want to get in a contract dispute with Jerry Jones because he would just talk about the contract. But this is Jerry Jones originally talking about CeeDee Lamb's contract.
Are you saying there's a sense of urgency as you begin the preseason to get CeeDee done?
No.
No? Why do you say that?
I'm I went to high school or I went to college. I don't know why I said it, but I'm just saying I don't know. I don't have a sense of urgency about getting it done.
It's a long-standing tradition.
Pick any reason you want. I was at Nobu 2 days ago. Give that as a reason.
So they definitely talked at Nobu. So for people that don't know, the Cowboys do an off-the-record, but everyone knows about it, chat with their media members at Nobu. And I've been to some off-the-record, like Rutgers. I know people, it's Rutgers. They used to do an off-the-record steak dinner with the media, and they would openly discuss things. When Chris Ash was the football coach there, I don't know if they still do it with Shiano, and when Steve Peichel first got to Rutgers. They would do those things. And I think they're very beneficial. Doug Peterson, he would do his on-the-record press conference when he was in Philadelphia every Friday. And then the cameras would go away, the phones would go off, and they have an off-the-record press conference. So something must have been said there if he's throwing a Nobu line there. But then Jerry Jones can't shut up. He basically tells everyone that. And Jerry knows what he's saying is stupid because there was a time with Dak Prescott with the contract dispute where he was like, oh, I have a liberal arts degree and then I had a master's degree. And if you're stuck in a forest and you cut open your hand, it's not necessarily what you get from your master's degree that will sew that back up. It's from the original education that got you the bachelor's or liberal arts degree originally. And I'm like, what? And I basically took away from that is that Jerry Jones has done this so long that he's not saying it's what you mastered in to try to fix this. It's because he's done it for so long from the infant stages, right, of so many NFL teams that he knows how to get this done. Like, it's stupid trying to get in the brain of Jerry Jones. But he knows he's being stupid right now, and you would agree, Boyle, because he then says, I went to high school. I went to college. Like, yeah, and you know what you're saying right now is stupid. And it's just going to create a bleep storm. But I've said this for years, and I'll continue to say it. Jerry Jones doesn't care about wins and losses. He doesn't. Jerry Jones defines a season as a success or a failure based off of how much drama he could stir up. And he's done this with Dak Prescott. He's doing it again with Dak Prescott. And now CeeDee Lamb's not here. And he's doing it, in regards to talking about this with CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb, quote tweet is like, LOL. It's like, you don't have the urgency. Why? Because if I had to try to get in the brain, in the cabeza of Jerry Jones, he doesn't want to say he has the urgency because then that gives CeeDee Lamb the upper hand. Oh, you're basically saying I need him. But the way the question was asked, it's like, oh, you don't even give a rat's ass about it. So I think CeeDee Lamb will eventually get a deal done. But I think this just is another sign. If I'm Dak Prescott, more drama with the Cowboys. More drama. And Jerry Jones knows that Dak Prescott has a no-tag clause in his contract. So if I'm Dak, I'm like, screw this. I'm not putting up with this again. I'll just hit free agency at the end of the year and go somewhere else. But this one, it's really something, Pat. Even when Jerry Jones does it, it shouldn't surprise anybody, but it's like, oops, here we go again.
Yeah, and I think, after this year where we think CeeDee Lamb's going to get a contract extension, but you just get belittled and antagonized by your owner in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm CeeDee Lamb, who am I to say, you know what? I don't feel like my value is worth here. I don't feel like I'm being valued like I'm a top 3 receiver in football. So, you know what? Screw you. No contract extension. I'll bet on myself, even at the risk of getting hurt and ruining probably the biggest payday of his career.
That's kind of what happened to Dak, too. He got hurt and still got paid.
Exactly. So CeeDee Lamb could say, you know what? I would rather risk playing this final year with no contract extension and leaving than trying to work out a contract extension with Jerry Jones after what has gone on these last couple of months. And maybe I feel like I'm being overreactional, but again, we have seen this now happen with the star players of the Dallas Cowboys. And your best receiver and your probably best overall player on your team is in this situation.
You think CeeDee Lamb's the best overall player in the Cowboys?
He's either the best or the second best. Him and Micah Parsons.
Okay.
Micah Parsons right there with him.
I would say Micah's one.
Who they picked up the team option on, but there's been no talks about a contract extension with him.
Well, that's also the other thing. I wouldn't think Dak and CeeDee Lamb would be having, the public feuds.
You thought it'd be Micah?
Yeah. Micah, he's a great football player. We know that. Podcast host, too.
Yeah, he can't stop running his mouth.
Hey, he's done it on this show. Thank you for the 4.5 million views. We thank you a lot. But he was saying T.J. Watt's on a top 5 pure pass rusher in the league. So I would, if you ask me who's most likely to get into a feud this offseason with the owner of the Cowboys over their contract, Micah, Dak, or CeeDee Lamb, I would have said Micah was one.
It's going to be Micah Parsons next summer because we see how Jerry Jones operates, and that is of an imbecile when it comes to these contract deals. There you go, my favorite word again. And we've seen it now happen twice with Dak Prescott. My point is, Zach,
yes.
If I'm a star player in the league,
you know what? Jerry Jones has sounded like an imbecile.
If I'm a pending free agent, if I'm a star player, and I see the way Jerry Jones treats the star players, which, again, it's a business, so behind closed doors, who knows what's being said, and I'm sure at times it gets hostile. But the way then that he takes it a step further in public and says the things that he does, why the hell would any star players want to go to the Dallas Cowboys here in the future? And this window, which I guess you could call it that because they're going to choke in January again. But if
I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Well, there you go. And if Dak's gone and CD's gone, what are the Cowboys without those two guys?
I think you could have one messy contract situation. When you have the coach, the quarterback, the star wide receiver, and your star pass rusher all having contract situations and none have been rectified, that's a recipe for a disaster.
By the day and by the year, Jerry Jones is making the Dallas Cowboys one of the least desirable places to go to if you're a free agent in football.
Well, I think it begs me to ask this question. How powerful is the brand still of the Dallas Cowboys? Like, don't get me wrong. We know what the franchise is worth. We know if you're a quarterback for the Cowboys, you get guaranteed 20 years somewhere on television when your career comes to a close. With that TV money, it's worth it. But I think in sports now, where the money is coming from doesn't really matter. Like, if the money's coming from Dallas, which it's not right now, but even if it does that make me say, oh, I got to be a member of the Cowboys, compared to, let's just say, if the money was coming from, I don't know, give me another team that, like, you may not say is like a big brand, like the Seattle Seahawks. So, you know, had success, you know. I think players, and I don't blame them, they value the personal side of it a lot now. And, like, the Cowboys can get away with this, right? Oh, we're America's team. We're the brand of the Cowboys and all that. But, Jerry, you haven't been to an NFC Championship game since the 1995 season. You haven't. Now, your team hasn't been a joke in terms of, like, wins, losses. Like, the last 3 years, they've been 12 wins. But what are you building towards? And when, like, every other team has paid their wide receivers and CeeDee Lamb's the top 10 wide receiver in the league, why aren't you paying him? And then you're picking to get into a fight about it, and then he had to walk it back before the preseason game. Here is Jerry Jones clarifying his CeeDee Lamb comments. This is the NFL Network.
I think I got in trouble a little the other day when I said, look, we're not urgent about CD. Well, no one appreciates CD being on the field any more than I do. But let me say this, he wouldn't be taking a snap out here today if he'd been here for you've got to use your head when you expose key players. That gives the other younger players a chance to do it. We know exactly what CD can do, and he worked out with Dak. And so we wouldn't have him out here. It has really not anything to do with his contract. Dak won't be out here this afternoon. And so the bottom line is, what it is no, there's not that urgency. Now, I understand completely the angst that's happening when you are anxious about and someone says anything about whether you're missed or not. Well, CD, you're missed. Okay, but you're not missed out here competing, and it doesn't put any pressure any place on us.
This is just Jerry saying, hey, I'm the guy that controls the paychecks here. Because I thought I was listening to the first presidential debate right there. I'm listening, nothing made sense. He knows the word he used, urgency. So you're just saying because he wouldn't play in the preseason game, that has to do with for a star player, there's nothing that ever has to do with the preseason game, which dictates a contract. Jared, that's brutal. That's a brutal listen from Jerry Jones. All righty, I've had enough with the Cowboys today. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. When we come on back, I have one big reaction to the AP Top 25 poll that was released today. We'll get to that when we return in a few minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Continues on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, the first top 25 AP poll of the year was released earlier today at noon Eastern. And when you take a look, I'll give you the top 10. 10 was at Florida State. I know number 10 was Florida State. 9 was Michigan. 8 was Penn State. 7 was Notre Dame. 6 was Ole Miss. 5 was Alabama. Texas was 4th. Oregon was 3. Ohio State was 2 and Georgia's 1. I think they nailed the top 5. I've been saying it all offseason. If you ask me who the 4 best teams entering this season in college football, it's Georgia, it's Ohio State, it's Oregon, and Texas. In my opinion, in that order. And then that next team, it would be Alabama. And I really do believe Kalen DeBoer going to Tuscaloosa is going to help out Jalen Milroe in a big way. Because even though we know, right, Nick Saban is the standard for college football coaches, right, and he is the GOAT. Offensively, though, Kalen DeBoer is a wizard. And I do think you're going to see Jalen Milroe be a much better quarterback than some of the ups and downs that he had a year ago. But then after that, right, there's a lot of flashiness on offense for Ole Miss. I'm fine with them being 6. Personally, I would think about putting Penn State, Michigan, and Florida State in front of Notre Dame. But you could really order up those teams 6 through 10 any way you want, and I don't got a big problem with it. Like, if you want to tell me Florida State's 6 and Ole Miss is 10th or whatever, I can't crush you for any of those 5 rankings. And then when you get to the next tier, outside the top 10, Missouri with their quarterback, Utah, it's all about how much rust is there still to knock off their quarterback and tight end in Keithy and then also Cam Rising. Now, LSU, I have questions about Nussmeier. Clemson, they're going to be good, but I don't think they'll be great. Nico Yamaliava at Tennessee is a solid quarterback. He's in at 15. And then after that, I think you're splitting hairs, right? Like Oklahoma 16, Oklahoma State 17, Kansas State 18th, Miami 19th, so more love for the U. A&M in at 20th, 21st, Arizona 22nd, Kansas. Lincoln Riley at USC in at 23rd, NC State 24, and then Iowa in at 25. But the more and more you go through this, and Stu and Pat, you could jump in here if you want. The more and more you go through this, it shows you that we have expanded to a 12-team playoff, which when you look at the way that the playoff is formatted, even some of that's anti-12-team playoff, and you see those first-round matchups as we gave you last week, like, okay, it's going to be fun that first round, especially when you have the home sites involved. But if you go through right now, how many teams can win the national championship? Not just get in to compete for the national championship, but win the national championship. Like, look at what we're doing, talking about how open it is 6 through 10. That's why I still think if they thought they needed more than 4 teams, 6 or 8 would have been a better number. Because I still feel like there's only 4 to 5 teams that you could really make the case for that could go win a championship this year. And that's my problem, my main problem going to 12 plus. I do think it devalues the regular season.
8 teams would have been perfect, in my opinion. The only thing that gives these teams from 6 to 10 a chance now to win the national championship is that you will have to have the top 4 teams win 3 games. Yeah. And the only thing that can throw off a Georgia or Ohio State this year in terms of their chance to win a national championship is if by playing that extra 3rd game, the quarterfinal round, if they suffer a major disastrous injury to their quarterback.
Or you just have an off night. Like, when it's only 4 teams, I think it's tough for the best team to really have an off night.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just looking at the rankings, so like if Ole Miss takes a couple weeks to find their groove, but if that defensive line, which I think could be monstrous this year for them, and if Jackson Dart, who knows, maybe has a couple bad games, like if all of a sudden things click for him, yes, I can see where they can pull an upset against an Ohio State and Oregon. But for the most part, like Penn State, Florida State in a quarterfinal game, when you give these top teams that much time to prepare, we rarely see upsets.
No, it's a fair point. And also it's like you have to exert so much energy. And like a school like, let's say, Penn State, that we know what they are. They're a 9-10 win team, but when it was in the old Big Ten before now being like the Big 18, they weren't beating Ohio State, they weren't beating Michigan the last few years. So if they beat a Florida State, can they then find it the next week up against a much tougher opponent? It's a fair point. But I'll tell you this, and I know I'm looking at 2 Notre Dame honks right now. Coaches poll had Notre Dame in at number 7. AP poll had Notre Dame in at number 7th. Notre Dame this year, I've already said what I need to say about Ryan Day at Ohio State, right? He's got to beat Michigan. He's got to go win a national championship. I've already said what I need to say about James Franklin. His ass better be in the college football playoff this year, and I actually think it will be in the college football playoff this year. But the playoff is now geared to get Notre Dame in, like every year. I know there's no spot reserved for them because they're not in the conference. But a school like Notre Dame, with their brand, and their brand still mattering, they have 2-3 losses. They're going to be in the college football playoff. And Notre Dame, in the third year of Marcus Freeman, first year was 9 wins, last year was 10 wins. If they can't get 9 to 10 wins here this year and make the college football playoff, and I like Marcus Freeman, but that's a guy that's going to get blasted if you're not in one of those top 12 spots. So you two Notre Dame cheerleaders over there, I know Pat, right, he already made it clear. I'm Irish, I'm Pat Boyle, of course. Notre Dame is definitely going to be getting in the college football playoff. Could you even imagine, though, a world, Pat, where Notre Dame doesn't get in the college football playoff?
No, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. I like how you said if they only win 9 or 10 games, who's beating them in the middle? Who's beating them from week 2 to week 12?
Yeah, but the quarterback is a major question mark. He could be good. Don't get me wrong, Riley Leonard. But it's like I can't tell you that he's going to be great. A&M is not some slouch that you play week 1. They have a pretty damn good coach, Mike Elko. Now, I know he's been in A&M before as a defensive coordinator, but he's now come back as head coach. Weigman's a good quarterback. You got Florida State on that schedule.
That's correct.
Florida State with DJ Uiagalelei and also Mike Norvell. I like them a lot. I think they're a better team than Notre Dame. I do. And then I don't love Lincoln Riley, but can you guys win a game that you're supposed to win? I think it's a fair question. Louisville, Brom last year was solid, but no, it's not an extremely tough schedule after that. Like, you're going to beat Northern Illinois. Okay, there's 1. You're going to beat Purdue. That's 2. You beat Miami, Ohio. That's 3. You'll beat Stanford. That's 4. You beat Georgia Tech. That's 5. You beat Navy. That's 6. You beat Virginia. That's 7. And Army 8. So you got to go then win one of those games. They should be a playoff team.
I'll say this. Florida State, top 10 team. Notre Dame will punish DJ Uiagalelei like they did when he was at Clemson. He'll be in for a house of horrors against that backfield, that defensive secondary for Notre Dame with Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts. They're going to pick him off multiple times. USC, again, Lincoln Riley, hopefully he still has his job by the end of this year. If they disappoint once more without Caleb Williams, good luck to them, especially moving to the Big Ten this year. So, again, it comes down to, Zach, yes, I'm pumping my chest because I'm confident Notre Dame beats A&M on the road in week 1. And if they do that, that sets the tone for what is going to be possibly a historic season.
All right. Now,
even if they lose, Notre Dame wins 10 games, and if 2 of losses are to a Florida State team that's top 10 preseason and week 1 on the road at A&M, they're in.
They have to be in the playoffs
They will
this
be.
year. It's a disgrace if they're not. Now, with that being said, last year you had a lot of guarantees about Notre Dame. Didn't live up to the hype. Stu, I will say you're the more level-headed fan here. What are your expectations for Notre Dame?
I expect playoffs. I think this team is good enough to make the playoffs, and like we've outlined the schedule is not as strong as in years past. So,
but just make the playoff. You're not expecting them to win games in the playoffs or a game in the playoff.
I could see them winning a game, yeah.
But you're not expecting it.
Not expecting it. Not like if they don't win a game, fire Marcus Freeman. I'm not at that level.
And Pat, they have to win 4 games to be national champions because they can't get a bye. So how many games do you expect them to win?
I expect them to win 2. I expect them to be one of the final 4 teams in the college football playoff. If they do lose in the quarterfinals to, let's say, an Oregon or a Texas, or Ohio State, I will be upset, but it will not be.
You can't call that season a failure, though.
No, absolutely not. If they fail to make the playoffs, Marcus Freeman, looking for a new job.
Yeah, I don't know if they would fire him, but it would be one of those guys where it's very tough to justify now missing the playoff for some of these brands.
If they go 9-3 and those 3 losses are A&M, Florida State, USC, and they beat up on all the other, there's a lot of cupcakes, and then if they beat up on Louisville and Georgia Tech, but they lose all 3 of their toughest games, hard to make the case that he can win big games, especially with what happened last year. There not enough men on the field with Ohio State.
Yeah.
It'd be a big mark on his resume. And like I said, they go 9-3. They miss the playoffs. Marcus Freeman should be fired.
And let me be clear. I have no reason to root against Notre Dame.
Now you do.
Like, I like Marcus Freeman a lot. I know Audric Estime is no longer there, but I enjoyed watching Audric Estime play football last year. I have nothing. I've been to touchdown Jesus. Like, I've seen all that has to offer Notre Dame. Wonderful place. But the Pat Boyle freakout would be very enticing. It would be very entertaining. And I would just like to see the Pat Boyle freakout if Notre Dame misses the college football playoff. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show, the Infinity Sports Network. Come on back with a news brief. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Now, Zach Hassan Reddick has officially asked the Jets for a trade, according to reports. Final year of his deal, wants to get paid, and that was likely a reason the Eagles traded him to the Jets earlier in the offseason. There were reports the Jets thought that there was an understanding Reddick would play out the final year of his contract, but he's never showed to any of the practices as he's been a holdout at camp 21 days looking for long-term money. Meanwhile, Giants first-round pick Malik Neighbors has turned some heads in camp, went down with an ankle injury in practice on Sunday. Head coach Brian Daboll giving the latest on his rookie.
I don't think it's fractured.
What happened?
He just twisted up a little bit. Wasn't on contact or anything like that. But again, he's a little sore today. We'll just take it day to day and see where he's at.
First AP top 25 is out. Georgia sits on top. Bulldogs getting 46 first-place votes. Ohio State comes in at 2 with 15 first-place votes. The other team to get a vote was Oregon. They received just 1. They come in at 3. Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State, defending champion Michigan, and Florida State round out your top 10. Big Ten and SEC each with 4 schools in the top 10. And Red Sox outfielder Jarren Duran suspended 2 games by the team for his anti-gay slur directed at a fan on Sunday. I'm Marco Belletti.
You make the call. 855-212-4227. When you want to talk to us, call 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, I know reporters won't like when I say this, but let's start off when it comes to the Hassan Reddick situation. There are two sides to the story. I think Connor Hughes has the Jets side and Jordan Schultz has the Hassan Reddick side. Hassan Reddick, we know today, has requested a trade. But going back to July, Connor Hughes had this tweet. The Jets made Hassan Reddick a contract offer for the trade from Philadelphia. It would have been a raise from the $14.5 million he's scheduled to make this year. Reddick declined the offer. The Jets said if he wanted more than that, they needed to see him perform first. In the meantime, the Jets would adjust his current deal. Reddick told the Jets he was on board with this. He would show up for the offseason program, minicamp, and training camp. He performed well early season, leading to maybe an in-season extension. Reddick then skipped OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. The Jets are not willing to negotiate anything until he shows up. The Jets do not know when he plans on coming back. He will be fined for his absence. So that's the Jets side of it. Doesn't put and paint Hassan Reddick in a good light. Now, the reason why I say Jordan Schultz is the Hassan Reddick side of it is I know Jordan Schultz and Hassan Reddick, I didn't do enough interviews together. There has to be some sort of relationship there. Jordan Schultz tweeted out today, sources, the Jets were informed before acquiring Hassan Reddick that his contract needed to be addressed. They made an offer prior to the trade with Philly, which Reddick turned down. The team still went ahead with the trade without a deal in place. Reddick attended his press conference, so they understand that contract talks would continue, but I'm told no official proposal has been made since he joined the team in late March. That's where things started, and it's why Reddick has not been with the team at minicamp or training camp, and why today's trade request was made. So, some similarities in that story, but the Jets side is more so, we were willing to give you a deal. You said no. If you wanted a lot more money than that, we would have even adjusted the deal for this year, but you need to show up, and we need to see you in person. Hassan Reddick's camp was like, oh no, even when they offered that deal, we were told, if you want to see me on the field, we're going to need a new contract, stuff like that, right? And I guess, according to the Reddick side, through Jordan Schultz, no official proposal has been made since then. So it's a he said type of situation. So let's go to something that's neutral here, right? And I'm going to say that's Adam Schefter. He was on the ESPN earlier today, and this is what Schefter had to say in his reporting about the Hassan Reddick contract situation.
Today he came out and said he wants to be traded. There's a contract stalemate. He's scheduled to make $14.25 million. And let me break it down for you this way. Essentially, he has been looking for that new contract to be paid like an elite pass rusher. The New York Jets haven't had any contract negotiations with him in recent months, and they've essentially said, we're not going to do a deal with you unless you're in the building. But he stayed away from minicamp. He stayed away from training camp. He hasn't shown up. And so there is the stalemate. He wants a deal. The Jets want him to show up. And earlier today, the Jets general manager, Joe Douglas, came out with a statement that said that the New York Jets will not trade Hassan Reddick and that they expect him to essentially report to the team. So we have a stalemate. We have a player who essentially the team traded for and was banking on, who now has asked for his own trade. And here we go with the latest NFL training camp drama.
So not really any new information there, but the way Schefter said it, the Jets want him to show up. Now, going back to the Connor Hughes report, how long do you need to show up and play well before they're willing to give you that deal that you're looking? But, I don't think Reddick really has any leverage here. The Eagles weren't giving you a new deal, and now you get traded to the Jets, and they want you to see you play. Now, I don't think Hassan needs to show what he could do to get a new deal, but that's what the Jets are saying. So, if I was Reddick, I wonder how this would have gone if he would have just showed up to the things earlier. Would you have got a new deal by now? Probably not, but maybe you would have. I don't know. I kind of think the Jets are more on the right here. I do. Pat, where are you on this one?
Yeah, I agree. Again, it seems like the end-all, be-all, where this could be resolved is they just said, hey, can you just show up to training camp and we could try to get a deal done during camp? I don't think that's if I'm Hassan Reddick, I don't think that he should think that that's a lie, right? Show up to camp. We have never met you. You've never played for us. Show up to camp. Get to know the players on the team since you've never, played for us. Get to know the system, and we can work out a deal in camp.
The only thing that makes Reddick, I think, look good here is why you may want to trust Reddick's story more than the Jets is you knew there was a contract dispute in Philly. So even though you had contract talks before there, why would you trade for a player who's unhappy with his contract if you didn't have anything rectified before the deal was done?
And do we know legitimately if there's any truth to whether or not they ever said, we will restructure your current deal, but you have to show up? Or was that never made?
That I don't know. I think they were talking, right? It sounded like the Connor Hughes thing. Hey, we'll get your deal even if we're not going to pay you $25, $28 million a year. We'll get some guarantees in there for this year or stuff like that. Maybe. But I don't have the specifics on that one. All righty, we talked about Ian O'Connor. He has his book out about Aaron Rodgers, and supposedly he was on Dan Le Batard today, and he may have passed some gas. Let me be the judge here and listen up.
Physically, he was. I think.
Well, come on. What are we doing there?
Physically, he was. I think.
Now, can you fade the music down here, Pat? Because I didn't really hear a toot there. And
there's a fart in there.
It would not be beneath the Le Batard show to make something out of nothing. All right? One more time.
Physically, he was. I think.
Well, come on. What are we doing there?
I can't be certain there that that's a fart. Now, if what I read is true that he said, he just has a squeaky chair, that didn't sound like a squeaky chair. Did he just make a noise with his mouth, when speaking or something?
It is. Here it is isolated.
Okay.
Physically, he was. I think.
I don't hear a fart there.
Physically, he was. I think.
As he's finishing the word was, listen.
Physically, he was. I think.
I don't hear a fart there.
You don't hear a fart?
No.
That's a fart.
I think it's a fart.
You guys hear farts there?
I hear it, yes. Between was and I think, in between those two words.
Say it again?
Between was and I think.
Was and I think. So in between those words, listen for that. Okay, go ahead.
As he's finishing, he goes, physically he was. As he's finishing the S on was, listen.
Physically, he was. I think.
Was I think. That just sounds like someone that stuttered.
You don't hear any noise there?
I don't hear anything there.
Physically, he was. I think.
I don't hear a.
Hold on. I'm going to now jack my headphones all the way up.
Jack them up, baby.
Go ahead.
Physically, he was. I think.
No.
Wow.
It just sounds like a lag or something in the Zoom or something. I don't really hear that.
It definitely doesn't sound like a squeaky chair.
No. Physically, he was.
Well,
I think.
That's what makes me think maybe O'Connor's lying because I don't hear a squeaky chair there. I don't. Oh, I know I just turned 30 over the weekend. Am I getting really that old that I can't
Yeah, but you don't hear the fart at all. You don't hear that noise.
No.
You don't hear that burp.
No, I hear it. There is some noise made. I wouldn't think that was a fart.
Physically, he was. I think.
Jack back up my music real quickly. Let's go to Steph Curry and his gold medal game performance.
We've all been in those type of scenarios before where you kind of just have to meet the moment by, again, just staying confident, looking for your shot, whatever it is, and there's a lot of faith just living and dying with shots that you think you should take. And those last 2.5 minutes were special. Guys were hyping me up. We had confidence in what we were trying to do. And I was just really present in the moment and enjoying myself.
I don't know if there is a star. I'm not talking about a good player or an average player. I'm talking about a star in sports that's more relatable and likable than Steph Curry. I can't think of one. Like maybe Mahomes. If you want to say that, like Mahomes is very likable. I don't like people eventually hate Mahomes because of how much he wins. It happens. But in terms of athletes that just make you just be so jealous with what they're able to do in a basketball court, Steph Curry, to me, Pat, is so likable and relatable.
Yeah, I agree. And unless you're a Warriors hater, which, again, they became a dynasty.
Yeah,
I guess
but once Durant left, do people really hate the Warriors?
That's true.
I don't think so.
Curry's never really done anything wrong in the public eye. I mean, he plays
minus
the game with
the mouth
enthusiasm.
guard where he threw it, but whatever.
So many kids, and even again, when you're watching him play, so many want to be Steph Curry because of these shots that he makes, the way he has transformed the game.
Okay, I'm still thrown off by the Ian O'Connor thing. Now I feel like I'm on like the outside of an inside joke.
Physically, he was. I think.
Physically, he was.
Physically, he was. I think.
Physically, he was. I think.
You really? I know you hear like the noise. You don't equate that to a fart.
No, that doesn't sound like gas.
I'm gonna bob my head for you as the fart happens.
No, I okay, sure, go ahead.
Physically, he was. I think.
Yeah, I hear that. It just like you're telling me how many Zooms have you been on, where the audio just like goes for a second, but the squeaky chair thing, like that's either because you panicked because you did toot, or you had no clue what they were talking about, and you're just like, oh, I do have like a squeaky chair. I don't know.
The defense is very questionable.
Physically, he was. I think.
That's not a lag. That's a fart.
That's
a fart in your open
to
house.
Me. I just think you have a dirty mind, Boyle.
Well, that is true.
You, Lebitard, and Stugatz, all dirty-minded people. That's what happens right there. Coming on back, Brian Mitchell will preview the Commanders next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the Hayes of the Barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes, he runs and he throws, caught, touchdown, it's caught, Hardman caught the ball, the Chiefs have won, the Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone. Their third Super Bowl in 5 years.
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The Washington Commanders.
All righty, time to go back into the NFC East. We'll preview the Commanders today. Brian Mitchell, former NFL running back, that does a great job as he does host on 106.7 The Fan in D.C., and he's kind enough to join us right now as there's some excitement with the Commanders with their new quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Brian, appreciate the time as always. How you been, my man?
I've been good, man. How you doing, Zach?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So Commanders fans got to see a little glimpse of Jaden Daniels the other day. I know only threw for 3 passes, had rushing touchdown, so not a lot to evaluate, but what were the evaluations from the small stuff that we got to see from Daniels?
Well, I think people were happy with what they saw. You know, if his first pass, he sailed it. You know, he said he was nervous in the first game, and you can expect that. People can say what they want about a guy being a great player in college, but the NFL is different. And he sailed that pass, and he checked off a pass, hit De'Ami Brown for 42 yards. He had the touchdown as well. But he had a control of the offense. And, you know, his teammates will tell you how he understands his offense. He knows what everybody needs to do. And he's a great talent. Everyone sees him as a running quarterback. He's just a passing quarterback who can actually run.
We know how things could change really quickly in this league. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. There's a lot more quarterbacks that go to teams that don't work out than do work out and change the franchise. But recent history matters. And what C.J. Stroud did last year in an organization that was horrible for years in the Texans is going to set the bar really for this rookie class. Like, what are the fair expectations in your mind for Jaden Daniels this season?
Well, I talked with David Aldridge earlier this year, and he made a comment to say, listen, he doesn't need to come out here and be perfect. He needs to just do some things to make you see why they drafted him. And when he saw that the coverage that they gave him, he checked off and hit De'Ami Brown with a perfect dime, 42 yards down the field. Those type of things matter. And if he could continue doing that week after week, that's good enough. I don't look at necessarily the record or what somebody is supposed to be because it's not all about the quarterback. Listen, Jaden Daniels will be as good as he wants to be. If the offensive line doesn't protect him, he's not going to be good. Pat Mahomes is a great one. But when he didn't have an offensive line against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he lost the Super Bowl. And when he got a good offensive line in front of him, he wins the Super Bowl. So you still have to have the people protecting him. And if they have the proper people that can protect him, he's going to be good this year because he's shown me in practice he's ultra accurate. The guy is smart as hell. He's not an average rookie where rookies come in sometime and they just love the fact that they're in the NFL. He's not impressed by that. He wants to get better and better and better. And he's the first guy in the building and the last guy to leave. So when you have a quarterback and you see all the success that Tom had, everybody needs to do that.
When you look at this offensive line, with how you just laid it out for us, where's your confidence with the unit up front this year?
Well, in this game, they had the interior in. They didn't have either one of their tackles who they expect to start. So that kind of makes you worry a little bit. But once those guys get back, Andrew Wiley has experience in this league, okay? They look at Brandon Coleman, a rookie that they drafted. He has some type of little shoulder injury where they don't want to risk that. And I understand that. So I have confidence in it, but take it a step farther. When your offensive line may not be as good as you want it to be, the coach has to scheme it up. I believe in Cliff Kingsbury. I watch a lot of running backs throw a lot of those little chip blocks in the game just this weekend. If they're doing it this early in preseason, they must be practicing on that and expect to do it throughout the season. So I think it's going to be okay.
Brian Mitchell here with us. So I look at the skill position players, and a lot of it is like, okay, what scheme do you get put into, and do you have enough around you? And it's not always on the quarterback like we're talking about. We all know Terry McLaurin's one of the more underappreciated wide receivers in football. I think Jahan Dotson can be a player. Brian Robinson Jr. is a solid player. Austin Eckler, that should be a nice 1-2 punch. They got the skill position players, in my opinion, for Daniels here in year one.
Well, they do. And I think you also, De'Ami Brown, a guy who's been around for a while now, seems to have gotten it a little bit about what the league is truly about. They have Zach Ertz here who can still play tight end. The kid that just drafted Ben Sinnott. I am expecting some big things this year. And the ultimate thing is Austin Eckler has something to prove. When you get a veteran player who's as good as he is and has something to prove, you see some amazing things. Brian Robinson is a battering ram. He can do whatever he wants out there, but he's better out the backfield than many people give him credit for. So you have all those things, and you have a quarterback who doesn't mind dumping it down to those running backs, dumping it to the tight end. It opens up things down the field for the better receivers. Like Terry McLaurin is as good as any in this league, and now that he has a quarterback who's accurate and consistent, if he can get him healthy throughout the year, I'm looking for some amazing things.
What's the latest on his contract? I know he has this year and next year. All these receivers have been getting paid. I would have thought, okay, you give a deal to Terry McLaurin. What's the latest there?
Well, Terry just signed a deal maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
An extension there. Yeah. So I think but the thing about him, one thing I know that he doesn't care about, he's not going to be like most receivers are just, we know how they are. They're all about them. Terry is not that guy. He'll get his money because people know he's going to take the job. He's going to go out there. He's going to give you everything he has. And when the contract is up, he expects to be treated fairly. And then he's going to go out there and do it again. And when you have a guy leading the way like that, good things happen for your whole football team because when they see the success he's having and how hard he works, the other guys can't sit around and just, take it easy. They got to work as hard as he does.
Brian Mitchell here with us. What's your understanding? Brandon Ayuk, I think he's still going to be on the 49ers and probably get a new deal before the start of the season. We know Daniels and him are close going back to their days at Arizona State. We all saw the pivot interview. Was there any legitimate interest there from the Commanders? Were they ever close in maybe getting a deal for Brandon Ayuk?
Around the draft, they reached out and asked what they were thinking. And once the draft passed, I think that was over with. And then as Brandon Ayuk went through all the stuff that he did, I think they kind of soured Washington on him a little bit. The ultimate thing is the San Francisco 49ers are one of those 5 teams that you expect to be in the Super Bowl. And they've been there, they've lost it. What happens when you keep getting around and getting close and don't win it? They start to say, well, you can't get the big game done. So they're not going to get rid of a guy of that caliber if they're still trying to make it to the Super Bowl and win one. Because the next thing you know, Kyle Shanahan, is going to be questioned. Okay, you're going to have the general manager being questioned. So if you let a guy go like that, that's going to lower your chances. And now they have players that are injured on the team. Christian McCaffrey, unbelievable. but he has a nick right now. A lot of those guys get that way. Trent Williams wants to get paid. He gets nicked up too. So they have to have all the better talent on their team that they can. It'd be stupid for them to get rid of somebody at that level of talent and try to go start over again.
So we all know Commanders fans are elated that Dan Snyder's out of the organization, and now Josh Harris is running the show. Adam Peters brought in, bright football mind. I thought for sure it was going to be Ben Johnson. I think a lot of people did. It ended up being Dan Quinn because Ben Johnson wanted to stay as the OC of the Lions. How about that trifecta of leadership now for the Washington Commanders?
I think it's as good as any. Listen, Adam Peters was one of the best out there, and I think the ultimate thing is to get the best general manager on your team, then he'll get the coaches that can do the things for you. I know people wanted to get Ben Johnson, but do we know Ben Johnson can be a head coach or not? I don't know that. I think, there was all kind of talk about he wanted to get paid a certain amount of money. Well, okay, you didn't get that money. So they end up with Dan Quinn. Well, I personally talked to a lot of the coaches on this staff that came here because of Dan Quinn. And I think you don't get a coaching staff with Lynn, who's a former head coach, Kingsbury, a former head coach. You look at Ken Norton has been doing it forever. Jason Simmons has been a guy who people look at that could be a defense coordinator, possibly a head coach in this league. They have quality head coaches. They have a lot of guys that are former players, which the players are going to be receptive to a little bit more. And these guys say they came here because of Dan Quinn. So I don't know if Ben Johnson would have had the same cachet or pull as Dan Quinn did. Dan now is in his second stint, and I think he learned some stuff from the first time. Let's be real. Dan Quinn didn't keep throwing the football in the Super Bowl, okay? Somebody else kept throwing the ball that kept giving the ball back to Tom Brady. And if Tom Brady keeps getting the ball, I don't care what your defense is about, he'll pick you apart eventually. That guy is still getting a chance. Why shouldn't Dan Quinn get a second chance as well?
Brian Mitchell, wrap it up with him. A few more minutes talking about the Commanders. Let's go to defensively. We know Payne's a stud. We know Allen's a heck of a player. I like Mikey Sanders still a lot out of Michigan. I thought he, at times a little underappreciated in terms of the national coverage. Jeremy Chin, when healthy, is a good football player. But how about the rest of this defense? Because that's a big question going into this year.
Well, Frankie Lugo is a guy who is he's a guy who's going to hit everything moving. I love the fact that they got somebody like him. He's an aggressive guy who's a sure tackler. Bobby Wagner is that leader who will make everybody else better around him. Dorrance Armstrong comes from Dallas, has 7.5 sacks in limited play. Now he's going to be the guy. Can he make that into 10, 11, 12 sacks? I think when you look at a lot of the young guys on this team, Jordan McGee, a young guy from Temple, got a little banged up in the game just the other day, but he still has a chance to come back. But when you look at KJ Henry and those guys that showed some promise last year, I think they're going to take a step forward. Ultimately, what it comes down to, the secondary has to get better, and the secondary will get better if those guys up front can consistently put pressure on quarterbacks.
What do you make of Emmanuel Forbes after 1 year?
I think inconsistent. I think last year he was thrown into a situation, wasn't really coached up properly for the situation, and he played well in spurts. He played terrible in other spurts, and he didn't get any help. Now, this year, he's come back. He has coaches who are going to give him everything he needs. Now, it's on Emmanuel now to get it done, okay? And I think in a game I just saw the other day, he was playing tough early on. Then he gave up a touchdown. That's the life of a cornerback. Hell, we look at Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs had 9 interceptions a few years ago. How many touchdowns did he give up? How many big plays did he give up? That's what cornerbacks do. But you have to be able to pick the ball off when you get a chance. And Joe Witt Jr. is saying that, guys, when you touch a ball, you have to catch it. Because if you get an intercept, you get 3 interceptions in 2-3 games, and you give up 2 touchdowns, nobody discusses it. But if you drop 3 interceptions and give up 2 touchdowns, they start to say, this guy can't play.
Wrap it up with Brian Mitchell. I know you know the NFC East very well, even going back to your playing days. Giants, I think they could be very good on defense. Offensively, outside of Neighbors, I think they're going to be a rough watch. Eagles, for me, it comes down to coaching and what Nick Sirianni does and that relationship with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Then the Cowboys, man, that's the one that seems messy to me because you got Micah Parsons, no new contract. Mike McCarthy, no new contract. Dak Prescott, no new contract. And then obviously we also saw the CeeDee Lamb situation play out the last few days. The Cowboys, to me, I think could disappoint some people this year. How about yourself when you look at the NFC East?
Well, I'm hoping that they do. I play for every team in the NFC East but the Cowboys. Listen, the Cowboys have had talent after talent after talent. If they messed this up, why would Michael Parsons not already have a contract? That's the dumbest thing in the world to me. Dak, I can understand you're not 100% sure, but are you going to get somebody that's better than him? And if they allow all those guys to leave, and right now the Bill Belichick thing is still hanging over McCarthy's head. He's sitting out there, and we all know Jerry loves to make a splash. So I am hoping they screw this thing up. They have the greatest talent out there. But if they cannot keep these guys happy, you may have a cluster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and Jerry, that's how I think he defines success now. It's how much, I call him the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, because it's all about how much drama can they stir up. Like an owner going out there and say, there's no urgency, you got to deal done with the player. Every other owner in the league would have just said, hey, we're not talking about a contract dispute publicly. We won't do it.
Well, Jerry is the guy that normally takes care of his players. Now he's not taking care of his players. Is he falling in line with some of these other coaches out here? Or does he want to go out there and make sure you have the best of the best? Because if I have Michael Parsons on my team, I want him happy, and I will pay him. Because Michael Parsons does things that the average person cannot do.
Are you confident that Sirianni and Jalen Hurts will be able to settle their differences with how much talent they got in Philly?
I think if Sirianni is still there, he had a talk with the powers that be, and those powers in Philly normally are led by what the fans truly feel. So I think Sirianni understands now he has to figure it out. And, having a big man on the sideline isn't happening for him anymore. He needs to go out there and be a grown-up. Act like a damn adult. You losing your cool on the sideline. Coaches can't do that. He has to figure out a way because that team is loaded with talent. And if they don't make it this year, he could be in trouble.
And hey, you talked about Belichick maybe going to Dallas. Belichick in Philly, Vrabel's still out there. There's names there. If Nick Sirianni can't get it done, somebody else would. You're
definitely true. In Philadelphia, you got to have tough skin.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Before I let you run, how far are you willing to go with the Commanders this year? If everything goes right, where can you see this team?
If everything goes right, I'm looking at like 8-9 wins, to be totally honest with you. I'm not one of those people who are unrealistic where, we're going to the Super Bowl. No. If everything works out perfectly, I think 8 or 9 wins, and that'll be a hell of a jump from 4 wins last year. Last year, I believe they could have easily won 7 games if they had coaching and they had accountability. Right now, they have accountability. I really believe they're getting great coaching, and the players are now happy and having fun playing football. That normally turns out to good things.
Brian, always great to connect with you. Thanks so much for doing this today.
All right, Zach, take care of yourself, man.
There you go. Brian Mitchell joining us. Always fun when we get a chance to tap in and talk little Commanders with him as we cross the Commanders off the list. And notice, when I brought up the name Mikey Sanders, though, right away, I keep on hearing rave reviews about him. I love what he was able to do at Michigan during his career. Okay, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we will get to a little onside, offside. But before we do that, I don't know why. I almost just tossed it to an update because I had Marco Belletti on my mind. Because Pat hears this fart with Ian O'Connor. Stu Kovacs hears this fart with Ian O'Connor. Everyone in the YouTube chat saying, Zach, you got to get your hearing checked. And I walked out in the locker room and got scolded by Marco Belletti. He's like, how can you not hear this? So play this for me one more time.
Physically, he was, I think.
Physically, he was. It sounds weird there. That does not sound like a fart to me. Maybe I don't fart enough, Pat Boyle. I thought I know what a fart sounded like.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You turned 30 over the weekend.
Yeah. It could be a slow-moving day for your boy. if you know what I'm saying. Still feeling some of the effects from all the partying.
Physically, he was, I think.
I hear that. That doesn't sound like a fart to me.
What? That just sounds like a Zoom lag to you?
I don't know what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like a fart, though.
What noise would you attribute it to?
I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I just don't hear fart. Like if LeBron if they didn't call him out for the fart, I would have never even thought twice about it. So
now, and it doesn't sound like there's a strain in his voice, like he's trying to squeak one out.
So I actually hear like a little strain in his voice. That's why I can't believe I don't hear that sound.
Okay, yeah, because if physically he was, I think, like to me that sounded like a natural flow, but there is that for me there's an obvious fart sound at the end of was.
Physically he was, I think.
Like that squeaks out.
Yeah, I don't know that doesn't sound like a fart. Doesn't. But it obviously was crystal clear to Le Batard, Stu Gatz, and Mike, the producer, because they were all over that. So we'll take a break. It is the Zach Gelb Show. Onside, offside. Next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
All righty, little onside, offside on a Monday. Let's get to Stuart Kovacs. Stu, what do we got cooking?
All right, Zach. So Utah head coach Kyle Whittingham recently sat down with longtime Oregon columnist and radio host John Canzano. When the topic of conference realignment came up, Whittingham said, quote, "I think there is a major realignment coming, and it'll be a big one. In my opinion, it's going to look very much like an NFL minor league. The short version is a super conference that will boil down to 40 to 60 teams in the super conference," end of quote. So onsides, offsides, college football will be comprised of a super conference, meaning no more SEC, Big Ten, etc., within the next decade.
So this is where I struggle. Right now, the haves are the SEC and the Big Ten. And it feels like everyone else is in the have-nots where, hey, you go win the Big 12, you're in the college football playoff. You go win the ACC, you're in the college football playoff. But now, like, no one's expecting you guys to go on a run and be a national champion. The Pac-12 has already gone away. So will the SEC and the Big Ten break up to allow this to just be one super conference? Like, I used to be a defender of the smaller schools. I still think there needs to be a place for the smaller schools. But in terms of understanding how college football works, yes, there are some very memorable smaller schools, but you're not going to go win a national championship as a smaller school in college football. So in the next decade, is it just going to be a super conference, meaning no more SEC and Big Ten? I'm going to go offside.
Offside.
I do think there are going to be super conferences. I think the Big Ten and SEC will take a few more schools, and then there's going to even be more of a difference from the haves and the have-nots that we have now. But that's the part of it. The Big Ten and the SEC make so much money from TV rights deals. And also, I don't know how many more attractive brands there are to scoop up. Like, we've had those conversations before. Notre Dame's definitely one of them. You know, Florida State, they want to be taken. Clemson, still attractive. You know, maybe Miami, just if you're living in the past, but there's not a lot more attractive brands. Like, okay, for basketball, UNC and Duke, but we know football drives the train. So I just have a tough time seeing the SEC and Big Ten just going away and not having some reference because of how much money they both currently make.
All right, so the Raiders quarterback competition might be the most even battle heading into the preseason. While head coach Antonio Pierce said over the weekend that the goal is to announce a starter following this coming Saturday's game against the Cowboys. So onsides, offsides, a bit of a two-parter here. Gardner Minshew should and will win the job over Aiden O'Connell.
Don't you think that's weird if they're announcing it this quickly still?
It's very early. I mean, there are only 3 games instead of 4, so I think maybe if there were still 4, it would be after the third game, but you would think you would want to see as much as possible before you make a final decision.
See, it's tough to say which one it favors one more than the other. Like, originally you would think, Gardner Minshew just because he's the guy with more experience, but I kind of think the way it's been worded is that O'Connell has the leg up because he was there last year, and it was Tim Brown who joined us who even pointed it out. Like, Minshew is a journeyman quarterback. Even though I don't think Aiden O'Connell is going to go on to be a great quarterback, I don't think there's any harm in giving him the start at the beginning of the season, and then if it doesn't work, you go to Gardner Minshew. So Gardner Minshew should and will win the job over Aiden O'Connell. I'm going to go offside. I think it should be Aiden O'Connell, and I do think it's going to be Aiden O'Connell. But I did have a pause there for a second. And no, that was not an Aiden O'Connor fart before anyone accuses me. But I had a pause there for a second just because announcing that this is basically going to be over after Saturday's game against the Cowboys just makes me think it favors the veteran. But I go back to the leg up comment with O'Connell, so I will say offside on this one.
Offside. I agree with you, Zach. Devontae Adams' comments a couple months ago, I think, were telling when he said it's Aiden O'Connell's job to lose. He was here last year. Think about what Antonio Pierce built, his whole mantra, and that whole great finish to the end of the last season they had, where it's all about culture and team building and his locker room's close. It almost feels like he wants to keep that rolling. Hey, Aiden did a great job for us last year. It's his job no matter, unless he looks horrible in preseason.
Put it this way. if you start the year with Gardner Minshew and Gardner Minshew doesn't perform well, it's like, oh, you're going to Aiden O'Connell, so what? It's like, you just told me he wasn't good enough to be the starter. Minshew, you kind of know what his role is whenever he goes to a team. It's kind of like the way we looked at Nick Foles outside of Philadelphia.
Yep.
It was like, okay, he's there. I don't want him starting my whole season, but if he has to play a few weeks, okay, he could win a few games. And it's not though someone I'm looking at that he's the long-term starter. So that's why I think you go with the more unknown with O'Connell, who in small doses last year was fine. And now let's see what he could do over the full season.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that was the second part is Minshew mania, right? It's if Aiden O'Connell stinks and they're 2-3 or 2-5, it's hey, all right, now it's Minshew's time to save the season here. Mm-hmm. He plays that great. He's the backup quarterback, the foxy guy that comes in and then tries to save your season.
I have an idea. Stu.
Oh boy.
Are you a mustache guy?
Yeah, I mean,
I've never seen you with the mustache.
not with just the mustache.
Just the mustache.
No, I've never been just the mustache guy.
Are you going to ask about Aiden O'Connell's mustache?
No, I think mustache more Gardner Minshew. Does Aiden O'Connell have a mustache?
I think he tried to rock one for a couple of games last year.
Oh, really?
It looked like an 8th grader that's his first going through puberty.
Yeah. But when I think mustache,
you think the handlebar of Minshew, the handlebar and the mullet.
If Gardner Minshew's your quarterback,
okay,
how many wins do you need to see out of him before maybe you go mustache?
I mean, if he starts from week 1, what? Are they 3-1?
Yeah, like when do you get delirious and I'm seeing Stu go Minshew mania with the mustache?
They win 3 out of their first 4 games with Minshew as their starting quarterback. I'll go mustache.
Wow. Okay, so let's do this.
Write it down.
Raiders schedule.
Chargers the first game.
And Herbert may not be ready for that, but they play Baltimore. Man, let's hope O'Connell starts the year. And then when they get to
it's a hard schedule, Zach. It's very tough.
I can't even find the stretch.
No. I think the first 6 games outside of the Ravens, they should beat the Panthers at home. They can beat the Browns at home. They should beat the Broncos. It's on the road. They should beat them, and then they can absolutely win a home game against the Steelers. If they're 5-1, Stu, you better be rocking that thing like there's no tomorrow.
That's you hoping that Stu has to rock the mustache. That's a tough schedule where they're going to be winning 3 out of 4 to get Stu to rock a mustache anywhere. That's I guess the most favorable, but it's not expected.
If they start 0-2, could they win 3? Yeah, I mean, they could beat the Panthers, Browns, Broncos, Steelers, 3 out of those 4. They
the
could.
Raiders?
Could.
What Raiders team we watching?
Could. I'm not saying will. I'm just saying could. They're not beating the Ravens, that's for sure.
Okay. The more and more...
Not beating the Chiefs or the Rams, that's also for sure.
The more and more I sit here in the minority about not being able to hear this Ian O'Connor part, the more I just feel like I'm more right, that you guys are smoking something and you don't know what you're doing because... Geez, we're talking about the Raiders winning 3 out of 4 games at any point this season. I don't think we're going to be talking about that.
The Panthers is a layup, and the Broncos
Panthers stink.
Broncos
the
on
Browns
the road,
are good.
They can win that. Well, are they? Deshaun Watson at quarterback? What Deshaun Watson are we getting?
Okay, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They went to the playoffs last year.
Yeah, because Joe Flacco came off the couch and immortalized himself.
Okay, let's go to the next
Deshaun Watson stinks. I'm just going to say that now. So
you're a former Browns fan. Deshaun Watson doesn't stink. Now you're making me defend him, and I've been saying for a while he's been a good quarterback in 3 years. I don't know if he'll ever be elite or great again, but I wouldn't say that he stinks. We just got to actually see him play, which we haven't seen in 3 years.
Well, that's how you know that I'm good at what I do, because I put you in these spots that you're normally not in.
Look at this guy. Wanted me to give him a standing ovation. Go ahead. Next question.
After coaching Team USA to a gold medal, Steve Kerr is reportedly likely to retire as head coach of the national team and will be replaced by his assistant, Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra. As an assistant and then head coach, Kerr led the team to 2 gold medals in Tokyo and Paris, as well as a 4th-place finish at the FIBA World Cup in 2023. Onsides, offsides, Eric Spoelstra is the ideal replacement for Steve Kerr.
On sides, everyone likes Spoelstra. Spoelstra's a heck of a coach, and he knows how to manage stars. And being the coach of Team USA is basically just being a babysitter because we have so much more talent than everybody else. So, onside, sure.
According to Ian Rappaport, the Falcons are hosting Pro Bowl free agent safety Justin Simmons today and tomorrow. In 8 seasons with the Broncos, Simmons made 4 Pro Bowls to go along with 2 second-team All-Pros.
I can't believe he doesn't have a deal yet.
It's crazy it's been this long.
Yeah.
Onsides, offsides, at age 30, Justin Simmons can still be a difference maker for whichever team signs him.
So how do you define a difference maker? Like, the Falcons are better They have Bates and Simmons in the same secondary. They're better if they get him, but do I think that the Falcons are going to win a playoff game now because they have Simmons? Probably not.
So probably not then. I kind of, if it's a playoff team, I think win a playoff game.
Like, he's a plus more than a negative.
Sure.
He's a good player, but it's not like I drastically changed my expectations for the Falcons. They should win the division, and then after that, I don't give a rat's ass what they do.
So that's an offside for you?
Yeah, I'll go offside on that.
Offside.
Fox's Kevin Burkhardt recently joined Bloomberg's The Deal without...
Marco Belletti's best friend, Kevin Burkhardt.
All right.
Is that right?
Necessary? No, because it's not.
It is true. Marco worked with him when Kevin Burkhardt was calling high school football games.
Yes, we've known each other for more than 20 years. Best friend, more than a stretch.
I heard Marco was asked to be the best man at Kevin Burkhardt's wedding, and Marco said, I can't take off. I have no off days. Go ahead.
For the record, he was actually married before I met him, but go ahead.
All righty. Well, maybe for the next one.
And he declined my wedding. He couldn't come.
Oh, really?
Well, I was in the middle of the
But
season.
he was invited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got married in football season?
Yes, I did. On
What
a
kind
Sunday.
of animal are you?
On a Sunday.
You got married on a Sunday? In football season?
Yes, I did.
Oh, is that wait? So he was calling NFL games. That's why he couldn't come.
I think he was calling the Cowboy games at the time. I
Okay.
don't know. It's hard. 13, 14 years ago. I don't remember
that's
exactly
a
where he was.
That's a legitimate reason.
He could have been still working with the Mets too. I don't remember.
Could have turned down a Mets game on a Sunday.
Did he
to
send
come
a
No,
in.
he couldn't have. No, he couldn't have. Don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Because if you don't show to if you decline a wedding invite, I think you still have to send a gift, right?
I really don't want to. I don't remember. I want to say yes just because I want to defend it, but I honestly don't remember.
didn't
I
send
remember
you
him
a
calling
gift?
me. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Come on.
It's almost 15 years ago. You remember what happened 15 years ago?
I look at Burkhardt in an entirely different light now that you said that.
I have a friend that I found out recently did not send a gift to a wedding that he attended. Went to the wedding,
wrong.
didn't bring a gift.
That's just flat wrong.
And I found out that person didn't bring a gift, and it does make me view that person a little bit differently.
And it wasn't like a big destination wedding where you're spending thousands on air and hotel.
Also, these friends, I don't think money is an issue for them.
Yes, that's wrong. That's wrong.
That's tough.
Look, you probably should if you get invited, but I can understand if you don't, depending on what your situation is.
And I usually wouldn't share a story
But you can't
like
show
that.
up without something. That's what's wrong.
I usually wouldn't share a story like that, but since this person texted me during the show about something else that has nothing to do with the show, I know they're not listening to the show. So, that's all I'm going to say. Next question.
Well anyways, Kevin Burkhardt.
I'm like a football coach there.
Kevin Burkhardt.
Jerry Jones, take some notes. That's how you handle the media.
Yeah, the bad wedding gifter, Kevin Burkhardt. He made it clear on the podcast that he is not a fan of the high strikeout numbers throughout Major League Baseball. He said that he would find some sort of a way to penalize the strikeout so it's more than just an out for the hitter. He did not, however, give an exact way he would do this. Onsides, offsides, Major League Baseball should find a way to penalize hitters for striking out.
Offside. I have no clue how the heck you would do that.
Offside.
Yeah, I'll make it 2 outs or...
Don't get me wrong. I would like to see fewer strikeouts in Major League Baseball, but there's no way to prevent that.
I agree. Last one. The AP Top 25 was released earlier today, and it looked very similar to the coaches poll, mirroring it all the way up until number 12. Georgia comes in at number 1 and received 46 out of the 62 first-place votes. Onsides, offsides, Georgia will be ranked number 1 in the country once we reach the end of the regular season and conference championship week. So go into the playoffs as the number 1 seed.
I'm going to say onside there. Ohio State is the one school that I consider otherwise, but I'm going to go onside. What do you look so confused about?
What was that noise?
Oh, I clapped.
That's what we thought.
I wasn't looking at you when you did that. I thought maybe you're trying to pull a fast one on us and see if we could hear a fart that wasn't a fart.
No, my hands, to be fair, you didn't see my hands there. They were under the desk, and I liked the question so much that I just went like this. And that was that.
Okay.
What, you think that noise sounded weird?
No, just my hands were under the desks during the onside offside. It just seems, apropos that's offsides.
Yeah.
Offside.
Wait, I actually was onsides there on the question.
Were you?
Marco said you were offsides.
Let me tell you, I didn't think my mind would be clean compared to the three of yours' minds. Just crazy. You guys all heard this fart? Not only
Physically, he was. I think.
Marco's making under the desk jokes. Jeez Louise. What's going on? What are we doing? As Marco Bloody would say to me in the weekend overnights, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? As Ben Horowitz back in the day once ate his drank his dip spit live on the air thinking it was a cup of coffee at 4 a.m.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
brutal.
That's rough. Absolutely brutal.
That was a rough night.
We don't have dirty minds. You don't have clear minds compared. I just don't think
I don't have good ears, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, no offense.
I'm past my prime.
I don't know what you don't hear. Now, whether or not it actually is a fart is a different question.
No,
but what you don't hear,
So
I don't
I
get.
hear the noise. I just don't think it's a fart. It sounds like a lag in a Zoom to me.
Physically, he was. I think.
I mean, is there a trombone somewhere around there? What else are we listening to?
I have to mic him up next time a little bit better.
The thing to give a little defense, I find it difficult to believe that it was simply because he didn't break stride. I don't think he's got that capability.
Yeah, you would panic.
No, I'm not in panic.
If I farted in an interview on someone else's show, I'd be panicking.
Yeah, it's not that. I think when it happens, I think whether you like it or not, you're going to automatically lose your train of thought, but like your breath. It's going to stop. You're just going to stop talking for half a beat to let it go. It's just two different bodily functions going on at the same time. And he doesn't skip a beat. He's still talking through the whole thing. That's what makes me think it's not.
I've made a big mistake, by the way, since we're in this department or topic of conversation. The last 2 times I've taken the Long Island Railroad, I have drank coffee right before getting on. Not a fun situation once you drink coffee and then you're on the Long Island Railroad. That's all I'm going to say.
And did you do the business
Did
on
I have
the
to
train?
go to the back? One time, yes.
Oh, no. That's an all-time.
Tough scene.
That's a 4th and 25 spot for you.
It's a low moment, let me tell you, having to go to the bathroom in the Long Island Railroad.
That's a path I have not crossed.
Low
Luckily,
moment.
That is not a path.
One time I was able to hold. The other time I was like, if I don't go, I'm going to be like Sean Marash in the producing room. And I want to be like Sean Marash in the producing room.
That is a military, what's it called? Chopper hover spot in the bathroom.
Yeah, now, the bright side, you would get most of that car to yourself. I'm pretty sure everybody would clear out.
Well, I thought the door was locked.
On the bright side.
And the door wasn't locked. And someone opened as I was trying to avoid touching the actual toilet seat. So they saw a lot of Zach Gelb.
On the LIRR?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
A month ago. It was not fun.
I would say that's offsides.
All righty, we will take a time out. We'll come on back. Final segment of the day. Let's get the update in first, though, with El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Zach out before he was ever in. Hassan Reddick reportedly asking the Jets for a trade. 30-year-old has been a holdout looking for some long-term money as he enters the final year of his deal. Jets picked up Reddick from the Eagles earlier in the offseason, unable to come to terms on a new contract, and apparently Reddick is tired of waiting. Red Sox outfielder Jarren Durant suspended 2 games for his anti-gay slur directed at a fan on Sunday. Meanwhile, Yankees and White Sox tonight. Aaron Judge, 1 home run shy of 300, which would make him the fastest to ever get there. Currently at 952 games. Ralph Kiner holds the record, 1,087, but Judge always thinking big picture.
I think if it comes with a win, it might mean something, but it's just it's not what we play for. I just play to help this team win and put them in a good position, and hopefully it comes with a win and it'll be something special.
Also on the schedule, you got the Brewers hosting the Dodgers, a pair of first-place teams. Giants a game and a half behind Atlanta for the final wild card. They'll host the Braves in the final game of the night. And the first AP Top 25 is out, no surprise, dominated by the Big Ten and the SEC, each with 4 schools in the top 10 as Georgia sits on top, followed by Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. I'm Marco Belletti.
855-212-4227. That's the number to get in touch with us, the Infinity Sports Network. Give us a call, 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
Alrighty, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Brian and Georgia asked Zach, how was the wedding that you officiated this past weekend? You can submit a question by tweeting at INF Sports Ed or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Stick O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. So, funny that gets brought up. And obviously we talked about it for like 2 months that I was officiating a wedding. But on Friday, when I was at the rehearsal dinner, so one of my best friends got married over the weekend. My 30th birthday was also on Friday. So they got me a cake, very nice, at the rehearsal dinner. Unnecessary, but very nice. At the rehearsal dinner, when the mother of the bride is talking, I know the mother and the father of the bride, they listen to the show a lot, actually. And when they were talking about the speech, they were mentioning how the bride loved the Backstreet Boys. And then they said, but we like the version Zach is back better. So there's a good little show promotion Friday night at the rehearsal dinner. Then you go back to the hotel in Providence, Rhode Island on Friday, and it was basically Zach Gelb's 30th birthday. There was an open bar and had a very fun late night. I'll tell you this, though. I don't get nervous when I do this show at all, whatsoever. I don't get nervous. Like, if I know we're going to have maybe a confrontational interview potentially where there's like a dicey subject that has to come up, you know, maybe sometimes naturally get nervous. But when I was walking down that aisle on Saturday to basically start the ceremony, and it was in front of, it was 190 people were at the wedding. I got a little bit nervous standing up there, and I know most of the people there. I knew most of the people at the wedding. But the ceremony went great, went phenomenal. I got a standing ovation walking out, made a few good jokes in there and in and out. It was like a 20, 25-minute ceremony, then went right upstairs, and we all had a great time. I think I'm an elite, and I mean an elite, audience member, I guess, of a wedding. Attendee of a wedding. On the dance floor, I bring the energy. Once the Manhattan drinks were flowing, your boy was moving a lot on that dance floor. There was a hora at the dance floor as well, which, you lift the bride and groom up in the chair. For people that don't know, I am a huge part of lifting, right, whoever gets in the chair as well, just because of my size. And it was a beautiful affair. I had one issue, though. So I was also like in the wedding party too. Because it's one of my best friends that got married and I was officiating. Usually the officiant is not taking pictures with the bride and groom before the wedding. So we had to be down in the lobby at 3 o'clock. So like the girls, right, they get up at 6:30, 7, and it's a whole day, get ready. The guys, we met in the lobby at 9:30, went out for brunch, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, breakfast, came back, went up to the groom's room, and, that we had there, and we were just like watching, whatever Olympics was on and whatnot. We're having fun, sipping on a little Don Julio and stuff like that. So I go back to my room. I said we had to be down there, I think at 3 o'clock, if memory serves me right. And I said, okay, it's like 1:30, 2 o'clock. Like, let me start getting ready for the wedding. At 2 o'clock, I said, I want to be fully clean shaven for the wedding, so let me shave. As I'm putting the shaving cream on my face, I had the razor in my hand, and it fell and scratched my nose. So scraped my nose. I am bleeding for 45 minutes. And I'm sitting there, towel after towel after towel after towel. And I'm like, I'm the officiant for the wedding. The ceremony can't start. And I got to get down there for all these pictures. So my parents were invited to this wedding, and I have no clue what to do. I'm looking up. I go, I got to be downstairs now in like 20 minutes. And I showered. I thought, maybe it would stop. Didn't stop. Bleeding. And like, I wasn't gushing, but it was enough where there was like blood. So I'm getting dressed, and I have the towel covering my nose still. And I call my parents. I'm like, you guys got to go to a CVS or a convenience store and, get one of those pens that, you drop on the area and then it stops the bleeding. So my dad comes into the room with one of these pens. Little dap on the nose. 5 minutes later, the bleeding stops. I walk downstairs. No one knew what happened. No one knew. But I was freaking out. And then at like 2 o'clock, Santa knows I'm at this wedding. Santa's not here today because he's sick. Santa goes, I think I may have the flu and I may not be able to make it in. And I'm like, this ding-dong knows I'm at a wedding. What are you doing texting me at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, calling out for basically Monday? And contact management, not me. But no, it was a wonderful fair, and congratulations to my friends Jason and Katie. One of the better weddings I've ever been to. And, I'm a little biased in there, but I aced it. Absolutely aced my assignment. So many people were like, oh, can you do my son or my daughter's wedding? I was like, next one's an appearance fee. This one was out of the kindness of my heart. But no, definitely a fun time. Anywho, that does it for the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network today. Pat Boyle, thank you. Stu Kovacs, thank you as well. Brian Mitchell, thank you as well. And each and every one of you, thank you for listening and interacting with the show. All righty. How do you suck this much at shaving, CJ? Daily, it's a great question. It is. I just had a little issue. Little issue. All righty. We'll talk Mignon, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.